questioned him and stated that if the report was presented to her as complete by the committee, who was she to refuse that report? In return, the leader of opposition, that is Honorable Joel Senyonyi, decided that he would lead his members of parliament on the side of the opposition out of parliament as a way to defy the plenary sitting of yesterday, stating that they would not participate in such shams. And therein, the Right Honorable Speaker wished them a good day. At the end of it all, the opposition members of parliament, led by their leader of opposition, resolved to sue the government, or the speaker rather, or actually the parliament itself, to sue them to the Supreme Court, the very court that ruled that civilians must never be tried in military courts. And ultimately, members of parliament passed the bill defying the Supreme Court's ruling on trying civilians in the military court of Uganda. Very interesting events that took place on the floor of parliament. But once again, good morning. Thank you so much for joining the show. Robert, good morning.
A lovely morning to you, and hope you're fine.
Yes, indeed, I am fine. There's some sort of flu going on around. Have you experienced it or seen it on your end?
No, I'll have to explain because I am not living without you passing on.
But the UPDF amendment bill was not the only event that took place on the floor of parliament. There was the conversation of iPod and all parties, political parties.
Now, very interesting indeed. And I'm very sure the opposition is not happy at all.
Not at all.
Because if we remember, it was on the 14th of May when a PAC women member of parliament, Faith Nakuti, introduced, that is the Political Parties and Organizations Bill 2025. Now, this bill had ingredients in it that were not very pleasant to members of the opposition. And among them was to look at clause 178, and yesterday we saw it for the second reading, third reading, and it was passed. Now, it looked at institutionalizing iPod as an organ of the National Consultative Forum. And therein it talked about only funding political parties that are members of iPod. Now remember, political parties that are represented in the parliament are given money by government for particular political activities. And now with this formulation, it makes it clear that members who are not part of the iPod are no longer going to be getting money from government to run their party activities or certain obligations that they are supposed to do as political parties. And what is interesting there also, it focuses on restricting funding to only those that are members of the iPod and the National Consultative Forum. So that is where we have that. And of course, this didn't go well with a number of political parties, but also it calls for formation of an organ of the political parties that are not represented in parliament. Now, one would wonder, why do we see some platforms, some political party organizations saying they are not part and they don't want to be part of the iPod?
Right.
One, they view iPod as a non-governmental organization, not a national thing, because iPod is facilitated by the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy. In brief, it's called NIMD. Now, they believe that this is not a government platform, according to them. And because it's not a government platform, they are not members. But also they believe that meeting under iPod doesn't make so much sense to them, because they just believe this is a justification of saying there is a democracy, we sat, we agreed, but they believe there is nothing tangible that can come out of iPod, but only for people to meet and justify that actually we have a democracy, we have where all parties represented in parliament
actually
meet.
When you say that, I'm reminded of Honorable Jimmy Akena, who is the UPC president. He decried the act, saying that I've not been consulted as a leader of the iPod summit. How is it that we are debating this issue? It is diabolical and has not been done in the interest of the players.
Now, because when you look at the Inter-Party Organization for Dialogue, is a Uganda organization that facilitates dialogue and collaboration between different political parties. It aims at creating a platform for political parties to engage in constructive discussions. Now, NUP will ask, have we had constructive discussions? But you're not members, therefore. How do you say that? Develop policies collaboratively and advocates for democratic reforms. IPOD also plays a role in conflict prevention and providing structured forum for parties to address their contentious issues. Now, when we look at the objectives of IPOD, it is a good thing.
Right.
But they're saying we have what we call the National Consultative Forum. Now, what do political parties stand out to lose? I want to give you just a hint. Last, as we are approaching elections, there was 23 billion shillings there for political parties, and NRM got 17 billion. National Unity Platform got 3.1 billion. FDC got 1.7 billion. Now, these monies were shared among, and I want to give you more of, then we saw political parties, organization act mandates government to fund parties with representation in parliament. In terms of figures, the National Resistance Movement, NRM, which has the majority representation in parliament, received, that is for another turn, 17 billion. National Unity Platform got 3.1 billion, and Forum for Democratic Change, FDC, received 1.7 billion. Other political parties that received money include Democratic Party, which got 485 million, Uganda Post Congress, which got 485 million, Justice Forum, that is JEMA, which got 53 million, and People's Progressive Party, PPP, got 53 million. Now, these are huge monies that are given to the political parties under the law. But now if you're not part, even if you're represented in parliament, according to what was passed, and you do not succumb, or you're not a member of IPOD, of which now IPOD has been put as an organ under the National Consultative Forum, you want to get a penny. You want to get a penny, and that is how biting it is going to be, and why some political players didn't see it justified. Because today you can have representation in parliament, and the next time you don't. And remember, you get according to numbers. Right. Yes, where JEMA got 53 million. Is it JEMA PPD? Yeah, the People's Progressive Party, 53 million. I think these ones had one member of parliament. Then when you look at UPC, they got 485 million. Now you look at NUP, the biggest opposition party, they got 3.1 billion. This is not little money to say for a political party, for them to conduct their political activities, I want to believe. But as of now, you either conform to the law or you miss out on that money. Wow, 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 wow. One would wonder with a lot of wow from their mouth as an utterance. But as the events unfold, we shall be bringing them to you and making sure that you follow them through as a Ugandan. And that also points it out to you as we look forward to the general elections 2026. I hope these events encourage you to vote, encourage you to be a part of the process for your country, as opposed to being away, because it matters in one way or the other, in some form or some shape and some form, it still matters. But with that, Robert, let's start right away with what is on the local scene. I believe these events are making around on the streets of the local scene. Well, let me first move away from politics and we go to wealth creation. Let's begin with President Yoweri Museveni, who started off his tour of Greater Luweero. Now, President Yoweri Museveni kicked off the parish development model tours in Greater Luweero sub-region in the district of Luweero, Nakaseke and Nakasongola. Museveni continues to advocate for increased household income and financial inclusion among the ordinary citizens at lower incomes. He said he wants to save them from moneylenders who charge exorbitant interest rates. On his first day in Luweero Obulenzi Town Council, Museveni met some successful beneficiaries of the parish development model. Museveni pledged to support with 100 million per parish every financial year. NRM Deputy National Treasurer Rose Namayanja Nsereko said if Ugandans embrace PDM, poverty will be history. At least 240 PDM circles have been formed in Greater Luweero, and about 61 billion has been allocated to all the PDM circles, with 64,210 beneficiaries in all 3 districts. Parliament passed the Political Parties and Organizations Amendment Bill 2025 after presentation for the report from the Secretarial Committee on Legal and Constitutional Affairs and the Minority Report of the bill. Napak District Woman Member of Parliament Nakut Faith moved the motion to read the bill for the second time and defended the motion, saying the objective of the bill is to amend Section 14 of the Political Act to restrict government funding and other public resources provided to political parties represented in Parliament to only those that are members of the National Consultative Forum. West Budama North Member of Parliament East Fox Odoe Owelewo moved a motion to apply the waive requirement in the Rules of Procedure that gives 3 days to read the report, which was opposed by Honorable Jonathan Odur. However, the Speaker, Anita Annette Among, moved the motion that Rule 2, Section 14 be suspended, and the motion was supported, then gave the chairperson of the Committee on Legal, Stephen Barker, to go and proceed. The committee raised the need to condition funding on political parties' commitment to democratic principles of tolerance, dialogue, and peaceful coexistence. However, the Minority Report on the same, presented by MP Jonathan Odu, states that if IPOD is institutionalized, it will impose charges on the Consolidated Fund. Government has already provided money for the National Consultative Forum, so there will not be any extra charge on the Consolidated Fund. The statement in the Minority Report that the bill breaches Article 93 of the Constitution was opposed. The speakers then moved a motion for the second reading and was voted by the President of UPC Party, Jimmy Akena. The bill was read for the second time, clause by clause, then third reading, and passed, and now awaits the President to assent to the bill. Finally, from the local scene, Parliament passed the Uganda People's Defence Forces Amendment Bill 2025 into law amidst tight security. The bill had spent weeks of political wrangling after the Supreme Court in January disqualified the military court from trying civilians. If the bill is assented to, civilians shall return to be tried by the court-martial under what has been described as exceptional circumstances. The boycott by the opposition wing did not affect procedure as legislators progressed to debate the Uganda People's Defence Forces Amendment Bill 2025. Amidst tight security around the August House, legislators proceeded with the bill after days of political wrangling. The chairperson of the Defence and Internal Affairs Committee of Parliament, Wilson Kajengwe, presented a report of the Joint Committee supporting, among others, the trial of civilians by the court-martial under exceptional circumstances. This cite that the trial needs to be fair. The provisions include the jurisdiction of the court-martial are contagious elements, and critics have raised concern. The report asserts how civilians wearing similar attires of the UPDF, including barrettes, may impersonate military personnel, hence compromising security coordination. It is also reported that the civilians can engage in actions which impact on national security. Despite their absence, 2 minority reports were presented. Kyoga County MP Moses Okrit cautioned the House against making laws to overcome the decision of the Supreme Court. He wanted the General Court-Martial to remain a tribunal. Lack of public participation is a concern that has not gone unnoticed, as the bill was against time. MP Jonathan Oduru presented the second minority report targeting the Attorney General Kiryowa Kiwanuka of double standards on the execution of the Supreme Court's declaration. The Attorney General Kiryowa Kiwanuka also dismissed allegations of interference with the sub-judice process which was raised by MP Jonathan Oduru. The 144-clause bill structures the UPDF by creating new services such as the SFC and Reserve Force to improve operational capacity. The debate was furthered during the committee stage, where some MPs continued to object the jurisdiction of the General Court Martial. And with the passing of those two bills awaiting the President to assent to them, we come to the end of our local stories.
Right. Thank you very much, Robert. Now, on a lighter note, speaking of Parliament, Robert, have you taken time to watch events on the floor of Parliament in the UK?
Sometimes I do.
There is a particular MP who always comes with his golden retriever on the floor of Parliament, his dog. It always attends most sessions.
Very interesting.
In Parliament.
But also I'm seeing us getting to that. We have a class of Ugandans that now love pets so much. And you see the world is a global village. Previously, cats, dogs didn't mean much to Ugandans. Today, there are Ugandans who value their animals, their pets.
Right.
Leave alone the cow, that is a traditional thing, but their pets.
Although for the times I've watched, I've followed the events on the floor of Parliament in the UK and seen this dog on the floor of Parliament, I've always wondered if it were Uganda, that would be a whole issue of conversation and time wasted.
We're getting there. I'm very sure we're getting there. It's just a matter of time.
Right.
And the good thing is also Ugandans, we have a thing of accepting that what is good for the West is good for us. So sooner than later, we shall get there.
But it would be nice for someone who loves dogs like myself. It would be nice. But let's have a look at what is on the foreign scene. And still, we are starting off with the UK, and that is the British government that says it will suspend new free trade negotiations with Israel due to its military conduct in the war on Gaza, where hundreds of Palestinians have been killed in recent days under bombardment. A new ground offensive has been launched and starvation is widespread. Speaking in Parliament yesterday, Foreign Secretary David Lemmy said that the United Kingdom was imposing additional sanctions on illegal Israeli settler outposts in the occupied West Bank, while the Israeli ambassador to the UK, CP Hotovli, has also been summoned to the Foreign Office. This comes as the European Union voted to review its trade cooperation deal with Israel. The bloc's foreign policy chief, Kaja Kallas, said yesterday. Now, the actions came a day after the UK, France, and Canada condemned Israel's handling of the war in Gaza and assaults and raids in the West Bank. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer ramped up his pointed criticism of Israel yesterday, saying the level of suffering by children in Gaza was utterly intolerable and repeating his call for a ceasefire. Now, moving on to the U.S., Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth on Monday ordered at least a 20% reduction in the number of active duty four-star generals and admirals in the U.S. military. A memo from the Defense Secretary said the move is the latest major shakeup at the Pentagon under President Donald Trump's administration, which has already fired a series of senior officers this year. Now, the memo also calls for an additional 10% reduction in the number of general and flag officers and a 20% cut in the number of general officers in the National Guard. There were 38 four-star officers, the highest rank that can usually be achieved in the U.S. military, and a total of 817 generals and admirals in the active duty forces as of March 2025. The cuts are aimed at removing redundant force structure to optimize and streamline leadership by reducing excess general and flag officer positions, the memo said. Hegseth later posted a video on X about the changes, which he dubbed "less generals, more GIs." In it, he said that despite the overall size of the military being far larger during World War II, there were fewer top officers at that time. Very interesting.
But you have those number of generals. I mean, that rank, then you'll have
Right.
diluted it.
Right, but let's come to East Africa. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan has warned activists from neighboring Kenya that she will not allow them to meddle in her country's affairs and cause chaos. Her comments came after prominent Kenyan lawyer and rights campaigners were deported, preventing them from attending the court case of an opposition leader charged with treason. If they have been contained in their country, let them not come here to meddle. Let's not give them a chance. They have already created chaos in their own country, Samia said. Now, human rights groups are concerned that Tanzanian government is increasingly cracking down on the opposition ahead of elections in October. And on Monday, the leader of the main opposition Chadema party, Tundu Lissu, appeared in a magistrate's court after being arrested last month. He raised his fist in a gesture of defiance and told his supporters, "You will be fine. You should not fear." There was a heavy deployment of security officers at the court in Dar es Salaam, that is the largest city, and this did not deter Lissu's supporters, hundreds of whom had gathered outside. The case was adjourned to 2nd June, and after the prosecution asked for more time for investigations. The court had previously attempted to conduct proceedings virtually, but Lissu's legal team opposed this, citing the need for transparency. Well, that is it from the foreign scene, but let's have a look at what is in the dailies today. Robert.
I have the way politics is unveiling in the East African community.
Right.
Seems we are following a similar script somewhere. I don't know where we are, because some of the activities happening here are similarly happening there.
And having the same players seemingly make face within all the 3 East African countries.
I don't know. That just seemed like a similar script somewhere. Don't know who wrote that. Now let's move to the New Vision this morning, where we have how the UPDF bill was passed. Opposition legislators stormed out of parliament. A big headline there for you. Then some good news. Exports to China increased by 190%. We are doing good. Now, come down there, President Yoweri Museveni, PDM central to NRM's wealth creation strategy. He's taken on to Greater Luwero, and I think that is one of the successful farmers who received the 1 million and was able to transform their lives. If that is one of them, I see cows there. You get that 1 million, you make wise investments. Now, Kagezi killer reveals person who brokered the deal. Who is that? Well, the vision has more of that. Wealth necessary for gospel, Pastor Patience.
That is light up Uganda for Jesus.
Yes, we need money for us to extend the gospel
of
Jesus Christ. And succession, tough fines for estate administrators. Now I will quickly move to the Daily Monitor. And goodbye, rule of law, till we meet again. And the lizard comes in very quickly and says the very thing they fought for. Now that is the Daily Monitor. We have Eddie Mutwe sent to Luzira prison. He appeared yesterday in court. And we have retirement benefit scheme, record and up growth. That is also a good thing. And police versus love, the wedding that defied the system. Well, Julie, take us through our neighbor. It's the dailies.
Right, indeed, looking at what is in the Daily Nation, and that is in Kenya. Nurses, no one wants. Wow. That is in the Daily Nation. And there is a list there that you could peruse through. But also looking at outrage as public schools run on empty. New City Hall rules to limit number of matatus per route. Still in the Daily Nation. And also in the Daily Nation, corruption case, Natembeya freed but barred from country office. And 25,000 promoted teachers to wait longer for parks as standoff persists. That still is in the Daily Nation, and that wraps it for what we have in the dailies today. Buy yourself a copy, engage, and get to read more of what is in the dailies. Keep current. But for now, let's have a short break with a song from Carol Komeza, Kampala. Good morning, Uganda.
Live from UBC studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda. Wow, boy.
Good morning, Uganda. Thank you so much for being on UBC TV. Hopefully your morning is starting off well. And if not, well, there's always better days ahead of you, so there is hope, and keep it alive. This is UBC, always here to inspire you. My name is Julie Nantaba Musisi, and as always, I am with Robert Chirabo Nyonyi Ntono. Now, one thing that is on your lips as a Ugandan is the UPDF amendment bill, especially the events that transpired yesterday on the floor of Parliament, right from Honorable Ssemujju Nganda expressing his tension to the Right Honorable Speaker as to whether there were security operatives on the floor of Parliament who could threaten MPs, just as was the case during the Coffee Amendment Bill. But right there, the Right Honorable Speaker comforted Honorable Ssemujju Nganda, stating that she would protect her members of Parliament. But in there was the leader of opposition, Honorable Joel Senyonyi, who also expressed his disappointment in the fact that the UPDF Amendment Bill report compilation was very, very insufficient and out of the law, given that the mandate for report compilation and consultation process has to take 45 days. This time around, it took rather a week. And he wondered, were all stakeholders consulted? He questioned the Right Honorable Speaker, who also in return counter-questioned him and stated that if the report was presented to her as complete by the committee, who was she to refuse that report? In return, the leader of opposition, that is Honorable Joel Senyonyi, decided that he would lead his members of Parliament on the side of the opposition out of Parliament as a way to defy the plenary sitting of yesterday, stating that they would not participate in such shams. And therein, the Right Honorable Speaker wished them a good day. At the end of it all, the opposition members of Parliament, led by their leader of opposition, resolved to sue the government, or the Speaker rather, or actually the Parliament itself, to sue them to the Supreme Court, the very court that ruled that civilians must never be tried in military courts. And ultimately, members of Parliament passed the bill defying the Supreme Court's ruling on trying civilians in the military court of Uganda. Very interesting events that took place on the floor of Parliament. But once again, good morning. Thank you so much for joining the show. Robert, good morning.
A lovely morning to you, and hope you're fine.
Yes, indeed, I am fine. There's some sort of flu going on around. Have you experienced it or seen it on your end?
Now I'll have to explain because I am not living without you passing on.
But the UPDF Amendment Bill was not the only event that took place on the floor of Parliament. There was the conversation of iPod and all parties, political parties.
Now, very interesting indeed. And I'm very sure the opposition is not happy at all.
Not at all.
Because if we remember, it was on the 14th of May when a PAC women member of Parliament, Faith Nakuti, introduced, that is the Political Parties and Organizations Bill 2025. Now, this bill had ingredients in it that were not very pleasant to members of the opposition. And among them was to look at clause 178, and yesterday we saw it for the second reading, third reading, and it was passed. Now, it looked at institutionalizing IPOD as an organ of the National Consultative Forum. And therein it talked about only funding political parties that are members of IPOD. Now remember, political parties that are represented in the parliament are given money by government for particular political activities. And now with this formulation, it makes it clear that members who are not part of the IPOD are no longer going to be getting money from government to run their party activities or certain obligations that they are supposed to do as political parties. And what is interesting there also, it focuses on restricting funding to only those that are members of the IPOD and the National Consultative Forum. So that is where we have that, and of course this didn't go well with a number of political parties, but also it calls for formation of an organ of the political parties that are not represented in parliament. Now, one would wonder, why do we see some platforms, some political party organizations saying they are not part and they don't want to be part of the IPOD?
Right.
One, they view IPOD as a non-governmental organization, not a national.
Good morning, Uganda. Thank you so much for being on UBC TV. Time for The Real, where we get to engage in a topic of discussion as we share our 2 cents individually and what we think about it. My name is Julie Nantaba Musisi, and as always, I am with you, but as well as with Robert Chirabo Nyonyi Ntono. Now, climate change is something that is accelerating. It's here with us, and it's here for long, here to stay, unless we take action. But so are the effects it comes with, and one of them being the inequality that it deepens. Now, from the effects that climate change comes with, one of them being food security as well as displacement, and many a times people who are mostly affected are women and girls, who are, interestingly, underrepresented when it comes to decision making. So that is what we are looking at today, and really, pardon me, really what we are looking at is, with the climate change crisis, how are women and girls facing and bearing the burden? Now, if you want to be on the show, the number is 0709602592. It's a WhatsApp number. Share your opinion, share your questions. Let's learn and relearn together. Good morning, Robert.
Good morning once again, Julie, and of course our viewer.
All right. Now, with that being said, we are looking at climate change crisis, and in particular looking at how a burden and heavy a burden it is to women and girls. Let's start from how it affects women and girls on a general whole.
First I want to say the world is doing so much talk when it comes to climate change, but less action. And this is not only for Uganda, but globally. There's so much talk, so much summits to say, but less serious action taken. I'll give a, we'll talk about the COP, for example.
Right, yes.
Now here we see the world meets, and they talk about climate change. Now, the recent COP, I was very anxiously waiting for what we call the Loss and Damage Fund. Now, this was money that countries that emit so much give to us, the poor countries that emit little, to mitigate. You know?
Actually, when you say that, let me just interject a little bit. Once upon a time, I was following indeed the conversation on COP summits, and there was an argument on social media that most of these developed countries actually use planes to go to the summit. They use the very things they're going to speak against to go to attend these summits, yet they never talk about how best they can travel to the summits in ways that are friendlier to the environment, which
so for me, whenever I've noted COP, recently now it was about the oil countries, then these, for you you're doing industries, for you you're doing oil. We've done so much talk. Come even back home to Uganda. when we talk about climate change being real and what we are doing, yesterday we were discussing the charcoal ban, how serious it is, it's been implemented. When we talk about people encroaching on our forests, people encroaching on our wetlands, are you aware that there is so much talk? NEMA recently began some evictions here and there. Where are they now? You know, resistance, court. Talk about the Kavera. So on that background, I say, shame upon you, the world, because you've done nothing, if any, to mitigate climate change. We thank you for the lip service you've done. We thank you for the conferences you've had, or summits, or whatever term, but to be realistic, we are all not willing to give away what we are gaining from destroying the environment that has made Mother Nature speak very rude and very harsh to us. Now, coming to women, you see, when we talk about floods, everyone is displaced. But remember, you'll have pregnant women. You'll have women bear the burden of looking after the children they're having, most of the toddlers.
Right.
How have they slept? What have they eaten? Which environment are they under? Most of the times I've seen women that have been removed from some particular part of this country because of effects of climate change. Most of the floods displaced now. These are women, some who could be pregnant, and they are not even able to access antenatal because of the areas where they are situated. Look at food. In Africa, and more so here in Uganda and in the rural setting, women predominantly feed their families because it is upon them to cultivate. A man marries and then takes you to a piece of land and says, here is the hoe, this is your land. You're supposed to dig, you're supposed to have food in your house. Unfortunately, with effects of climate change, if floods have taken over, that food is not there. And the children look to the mother, leave alone in urban centers. But even here, the children look to the mother for food. If the father has provided or not, and the mother will always be there through thick and thin to ensure that children feed. So when we talk about feeding, it is a problem. When we talk about health, how many times do men need health facilities? I'm not saying we do not, but a woman will conceive, a woman will have various challenges. And of course, we know that usually women will rush to health centers compared to their male counterparts.
Right.
So that is also another challenge. So in all ways, women are affected more than their male counterparts when it comes to climate change disasters.
Right. Now let's look at how climate change affects girls in particular when it comes to education.
First, we must understand that climate change comes along with poverty. If someone has been having a shelter, and this shelter is no more, destroyed, we've seen what has happened in Wududa, and a number of places now, you can talk about climate change disasters that have caused havoc, ended lives of people as in their source of earnings, and these young girls end up being very vulnerable. You know, where there is poverty, much as the boy child also suffers, but there is so much exploitation of the girl child. Many young girls are exploited simply because they lack and they want to have. And those that are willing to give them are willing to partake something from them. And at the end of the day, they land in trouble that they cannot explain. That is unwanted pregnancy. That is getting diseases, STDs, to mention HIV. That is unsafe abortion. Remember, abortion is illegal in this country. So many people who do it stealthily. And for such young girls, they do it stealthily, and some lose lives. Some, their future will never be the same because it wasn't done properly. Not to say I advocate for proper abortions. If it wasn't done properly, so you end up seeing these young girls develop life situations. Men have lost uteruses because they are maybe rotting inside them. They have to go for surgery, remove them, and they will never give birth for the rest of their lives. But also their education. that when this disaster strikes, sometimes the places of education become now temporary shelters. You can't have people that are not having where to stay and there's a school. They usually run to schools. Now these schools are turned into camps. Second, the distances of travel. Sometimes even schools are swept. That is now floods. If it is extreme hot temperatures, you still find it that these girls are also affected in one way or the other. For example, we know that most of us Ugandans depend on what we call rainfall-fed agriculture. When drought comes in and we are not able to grow food, these young girls, their parents are not able to feed them at home. And I want to tell you there is nothing that disturbs a human being like an empty stomach.
That's very true.
Even the Bible is very clear. Someone gave out his birthrights for the Christians. In those days, birthrights were highly respected. But the man was starving to death. He said, you know what? Take this, give me what to eat, like a portion of food, so that I can eat and see the next day. So this is what happens to these young girls. And at the end of the day, they are affected. The male, I'm not saying the boys are not affected. But you see, the challenge is the boys, by nature of our society, has been framed and shaped. They can go and hustle. I've seen some young boys working they're in brick making, some in stone quarries, some casual jobs. And they are not exploited. The boy, one would think of maybe cheating them by not paying their money as they have agreed.
Right.
They may have fights there over this.
Right.
But the girls, the first thing is sexual exploitation, which comes with a number of challenges.
Right. Now, with that being said, let's just have a look at what the statistics say, just to paint you a picture on this particular crisis of the climate and how it heavily burdens girls and women in Uganda. Now, an impact on agriculture and livelihoods. It shows that in 2019-2020 report, approximately 46.8 Ugandans working age, that is population between 14 to 64 years, was engaged in subsistence agriculture. However, 55% of these were women, and women being highly susceptible to climate variability, such as droughts and floods, and thus this threatening their primary source of income and food security. Now let's look at education. A study across 16 districts in Uganda revealed that 18% of respondents reported forced early marriages during drought periods driven by economic hardships and food insecurity. And in Chiruhura district, 25% of girls reported traveling longer distances to fetch water due to climate change compared to 20% of the boys. And additionally, 3.8% of girls sought paid work to support their families. Now let us look at health risks and gender-based violence. A 2023 UNICEF Uganda report documented a 25% increase in child marriages during the periods of drought, with early pregnancies putting young girls at higher risks of maternal complications. And in displacement camps, overcrowded shelters and inadequate security led to a 15% rise in sexual violence cases following a major disasters, as reported by a UN Women Uganda study in the year 2022. Now, let's just even look at one last statistic, particularly for Karamoja sub-region in Bilatuk district. Climate change issues disrupted traditional gender roles, where men now shifted to from pastoralism to crop farming, while women are the ones now who took on trade jobs, trade duties, and thus leading to an increased workload for women more than the men. Now, with that statistic, it's to just paint the picture of what we've been talking about from the start, and to show you how dire this issue is of how women and the girls are affected by the climate change crisis. Robert, let's take a look at the health risks that women and girls face due to climate-related issues in detail?
Now, first, we know that girls have specific roles, mostly in the traditional setting or rural areas. I don't want to be so much in the urban setting. One of them that is very biological is childbearing. And when you look at many of these reports for persons who have been displaced by climate change, either drought or floods. Now, drought is extreme heat conditions.
Right.
But floods is extreme waters and people have to move away. Or sometimes even they are life-threatening, like what happens in Uganda. Now, first and foremost is lack of health facilities for these people to go to. Because when government is looking for a camp or when they are running for their lives, it is about saving lives. It's not health facilities as a priority at the first place. When Red Cross comes in and they are at the camp, they give them blankets. Of course, there may be some bit of treatment, but I've seen a number of interviews where these ladies are confessing, I'm pregnant, now I can't go for antenatal. It's about 30 kilometers from where the camp is for me to go to a health facility. I've seen some give birth in the hands of traditional birth attendants. Now, what happens if a C-section is required or cesarean section is required or an operation for this young woman to give birth? That means the baby and the mother may go. So health becomes a great problem when it comes to climate change, because the health facilities are not anywhere near to where these people should have gone. But also feeding. You see, nutrition is health. Now, where your food has been washed away by floods, where you have nothing to eat. We've seen our friends, the Karamojongs, there was a time stories were running of people eating leaves. Ebikola. Now tell me for sure, a breastfeeding lady who has not eaten, who is in this dire situation, how is she going to have the milk for the baby? But also her health as a woman who is living on poor nutrition, lack of what to eat. We've seen some shrinking, you know, and you look at pictures and you're like, these human beings, do they still have flesh on their bones? You can hardly tell. So health-wise, there are those complications. If you can't access health services, if you can't access what to eat. Health-wise still, water. There's a saying that water is life. But remember, some, like you've mentioned statistics, how they had to trek distances to be able to fetch water. Now, if you do not have water for cooking, if you do not have water for showering, if you do not have water for drinking, that is also a health threat. But even as these long distances are not healthy, because these girl children interact a lot of threats on their way. When we were growing up, we had so many stories of how young girls would get spoiled because they were going to fetch water. That distance from where they stay to the well or to the water body, the longer it is, the more risky it exposes them to rape and defilement. And these are health challenges. The more it exposes them to people with ill minds, if they're underage, who may exploit them. Because remember, if they're not above the years of 18, we do not take them as people who can make reasonable, independent decisions. They're either coerced or tactfully exploited.
Right. You know, you've painted a picture, and it reminds me of what Honorable Phillips mentioned yesterday when we were talking about nutrition, and especially for the Karamoja sub-region. He did make mention of the fact that there's an issue of mindset in areas like the Karamoja region. And that mindset is where they receive actual meals, actual food, you know, healthy enough to be consumed, but instead change it, swap it for, maybe they always have enjoyment, a lot of enjoyment hours in those regions, and swap it for a bottle of beer. And due to issues like mindset issues, you find that it's men who are active in these cases, leaving it to the women to suffer the most in how best can the children feed if the food is being swapped, the little food that we are able to receive from whatever the government is able to provide, given the land and how hot Karamoja is, with whatever little we are able to receive, and then it's being swapped for enjoyment hours, and then what is left for the children, which still ends up with the effect of women being affected, their children, and if enjoyment hours take over, that means they'll not be able to feed.
Actually, for Karamoja, I don't even want to call them enjoyment hours.
I'm using enjoyment,
because,
enjoyment
for them,
hours.
they don't have.
Because it's what the Honorable also used, the language she used, that there's a lot of enjoyment in Karamoja.
I want to tell you, to transform Karamoja, I'm happy we've made strides.
Yes.
Because now you can't use the word, I will not wait for Karamojong to develop. There is development in Karamoja. At least I've been in Karamoja 3 times now, and there is some noticeable development. But I want to quickly add that we must take 2 approaches. We must have sensitization, we must have income, but we must also apply force to transform Karamoja. When you get to Karamoja, there are things that you're going to see and wonder how these people. In Uganda today we talk about coffee as a cash crop, and coffee is earning this country.
Right.
But not to use archaic methods. That coffee was not grown by people wanting. There's a time people were given seedlings and they would fly them or things like that. But we have what we call a mwanyi chiboko. Chiboko was because you don't have a coffee garden, you would be walloped. These days we cannot beat people, but you can pass bylaws. These people have land, and statistics has shown that they have one of the fertile land soils in this country. How do we compel them to cultivate this land? Much as government will come with mechanization. So we go with sensitization, we go with mechanization, but also we put force. If you have one of the best soils this country has, why don't you grow food?
Why should enjoyment take over? 2,
why should it be predominantly okay? You go to Karamoja now, on the streets you're going to find drunken men. I was there, drunken men at this time. Throughout, a drunko is moving, trying to throw stones, becoming a nuisance. You know, certain times you must go with 2 approaches. Like the white man conquered Africa. You come with the Bible, you have a gun. You see, the 2 work together.
Wow.
There is peace, but where compliance is not. At the end of the day, we have a saying in Uganda that actually chiro musima bukete. Now, when we overcome people depending on only the cow, yes, milk is nutritious, but you see, when drought comes and this cow doesn't have what to eat, it is also another problem.
All right, therein, let me ask you, Robert, how do you think race, age, and class compound the challenges women and girls face with the issue of the climate crisis?
Now, of course, class defines this because people that are well off, unless ignorance, they'll have the good nutrition, they'll access health services. Now, when you talk about culture, it has a place, it has placed the woman and the girl child in various areas of this country that directly puts them in harm's way for the effects of climate change to hit them stronger than their male counterparts. So these are things that we must address, even religion as well. You know, it puts women somewhere that renders them more vulnerable compared to their male counterparts. And if we don't address this, why must we say that women entirely must be the ones to cultivate the land? Because one would say they're even less the strength. You know, but there are people in some cultures predominantly to do the farming. Then what they produce, what comes out of there, the men go and sell. Now, when they sell, just imagine you're selling what you participated nothing in growing, or maybe you bought the seeds. They take the money for drinking, getting another woman, and bring the penny, the little, to give the woman to run the home. You've sold sacks of millet, You've sold sacks of coffee, sacks of sorghum, grown by the wife, by the woman of that home. Now you come back, you take a good percentage for you as the man, and you leave the little for the woman, but you expect to find food, you expect her to feed the children, and where they are sick, to do that treatment as well. So it doesn't just balance.
Unrealistic expectations from places where seeds haven't been sowed. Indeed, very challenging at that. But Robert, let's talk about, as we start to bring this to a close in just about a minute, let's talk about representation of women. Earlier on at the start of the conversation, I mentioned that one of the burdens that affect women and girls is the fact that they're underrepresented at the policy-making level, yet they're the most affected. Paint a picture in regards to that. How far has representation come from where you think we were to where you think we are and where we should be?
Now, first I'll speak for Uganda. Uganda, through affirmative action, I must say representation we've achieved, because any political structure that we have in this country, right from LC1, you have Secretary for Women Affairs. Any elective level we do have. Now, when it comes to Parliament, this is where we have challenges. But if we look at our Parliament of about 559 members of Parliament, something like that, you'll find that, yes, we have many women members of Parliament. Those that have come on the ring-fenced vote that you must be a woman to be a district representative. So a man cannot go for that seat. But when you go to directly elected, you'll find that out of this huge number, we don't have even 20. I think they're about 18 that have been able to contest in spaces that are open for both men and women and have made it to Parliament. But also, I have a quick question, Julie, as we wind up. Are we simply talking about women occupying spaces, or are we talking about value for women occupying spaces? If you have the first deputy prime minister, second deputy prime minister, vice president, come speaker, then ministers, His Excellency Kaguta Museveni has done justice. When you look at the cabinet percentage that women occupy, now, when we go to districts, okay, they may be very minimal, but we had value for these women in pushing for what affects other women. Have we had value for these women? When a husband is arrested, who suffers most? Have we had value for these women fighting against human rights abuse in this country? Because they're the most affected.
That's true.
I've seen these people who have been arrested. Their mothers, their wives are the most affected. Have we seen women standing up on global platforms and saying, no, we need to have carbon trade kickoff. No, we need better money is a better deal for the loss and damage fund. Have we seen women stand up against encroachment on our forests, encroachment on wetlands? Have we seen these women stand up for such issues? Or are we saying, let's have more places occupied by women? We need value, not numbers. That is my opinion.
Thank you very much, Robert. And that is very profound. The numbers have to now translate to the value. Now, the conversation does continue on our X app at UBC TV Uganda. Do follow and engage in the conversation. The hashtag is UBCGMU as you follow in on the conversations. I will be reading a couple of your comments that have come through a little later on. But for now, GMU Tourism Express is coming up. Business is coming up. And in the agenda, we shall be having the conversation on Uganda Cooperatives Alliance, and this time round, sustainable environment management through cooperatives in Uganda. So a lot in store for you.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
Was brought to you by
I'll call you every day, yeah, yo, can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Okwongera okuyiga ebikwata ku musolo n'okubisembereza abagusasula. Bannayuganda bangi balina ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo gwe basasula eri ekitongole ekiwooza URA.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear kitenge at 10,000.
Alikuwa nafika kwa mwingine URA na kurespect lazima mzee tuongee. Munaongee. Hakuna fika kwa mwingine na kamata faili yako naweka kwa drawer na.
Okutegeera obukulu bw'okusasula omusolo busobola okuyamba okuzza bizinesi yo n'okwewala okufiirizibwanga. Kati osobola okufuna okuddibwamu obutereevu. Sindika ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo ng'oweereza obubaka bw'obutereevu ne WhatsApp ku nnamba y'essimu 079148887. Olwo ofuna okuddibwamu okuva wa Kamisona General wa URA John Musinguzi. Laba mawulire gaffe UBC leero buli lwa bbalaza n'olwokusatu ofune okunnyonnyola okulambulukufu okuva ew'omukenkufu. Buuza Kamisona.
Climate crisis is a very important issue that we need to actually take seriously, because if we don't take care of our environment, what is it that we are going to live up to and how are we going to even live here? Because just the way you wake up every morning and take care of your body, eat some food to survive, is the very way we need to take care of the environment, because that is the only way we are going to survive. This is home. It's not just about the women and the girls, but to you as the men, and it is collective responsibility for everyone in community to take part in this. Well, good morning and welcome on the GMU Tourism Express. Thank you for also sticking around UBC. My name is Zakia Lucky, and today we'll be taking you about the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo. But before we get into that, congratulations once again to Uganda. We had our very first direct flight of Uganda to the UK just days back, and it's going to be doing 4 days a week. A ticket will be going for $720 for starters. If you have always planned to fly to the UK, it's the time to fly and see what you can do. Well, we had the International Museum Day that was in Kabale recently in Shigezi, and there were so many activities that were taking place. There was sports activities. We saw CSR being done, schools being visited, tree planting, which also spearheaded the opening of Kabale Museum itself, and so many others that pushed towards this day. But it all comes back to tourism. Now the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo is finally here, the highly anticipated event, and there's a lot that will be going on. But going back to the museum day as well, there were students that were involved in this, and will be bringing you schools to show that young people have not been neglected. We'll be visiting Immaculate Heart Girls School near Chibaya in Lukunjiri to get to see the museums and how they're doing, especially with schools. Now, going to the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo, We are going to be taking you through what is going to be happening. It is kicking off today. We have finally zeroed down as the countdown has been going on, and there's quite a number of activities. But remember, the Ministry of Tourism, Wildlife and Antiquities invited over 100 international trade buyers for you to come and mingle with, learn from, do business, and that is exactly what is going to be happening from today. Right from the conferences that will be happening and the showcases, culture exhibitions, it's going to be very colorful. Make it a point to be there, because right after here I'll be also heading there. Now, going into the details that will be there, I told you I did attend the other edition, and by the way, this is the 9th edition. There were so many culture exhibitions that took place, and also getting to see the feel of what Uganda is like. All these people don't get a chance to visit entirely the country, but at least they get to see on ground what it's been happening. And one of the highlights for me the other year with the Batwa that they brought all the way from Chigezi region, and I suppose most people that have not traveled had never gotten a chance to see these ones, and that was an opportunity for them to get to see how their dance is like, what their feel is like. And it's not just those, but every tribe gets to represent there. We did see the Karamajong there. We did see the article showcase what they have. It's not only the dances, the cultural outfits, but their language, their foods that they feed. And more to that is conferences. They get to bring you CEOs that you've not managed to meet probably, but here is a chance for you to hear from them and get to see what they have to say and also coordinate with you. Now, taking you into the details of what will be happening. To start with, the theme is tourism and sustainable transformation, focusing on balancing development with conservation and community empowerment. There are very many speakers that will be with you in all these conferences, and the delegates attending the conferences, forums and symposiums to learn and network, but also hosted buyers will be meeting with exhibitors and exploring business opportunities. And exhibitors will be showcasing their tourism products and services to a targeted audiences as well. Regional tourism forums will be discussing travel facilitations and transboundary product development and regional tourism promotion. When we get to the destination marketing symposium itself, with showcasing cutting-edge strategies for destination visibility and market positioning. Uganda's rich tourism offerings will be including, and tourism boards like Uganda Tourism Board, Kenya Tourism Board, Rwanda Tourism Board, and Tanzania Tourism Board will all be there. And then tour operators. Well, thank you for that. Stick around, and we are still going in with Good Morning Uganda. The business segment will be coming in with Julie Nantabamosisi. Please stick around.
okwongera okuyiga ebikwata ku musolo n'okubisembereza abagusasula. Bannayuganda bangi balina ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo gwe basasula eri ekitongole ekiwooza URA.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear kitenge at 10,000.
Alikuwa fika kwa mwingine URA na kurespect, lazima mzee tuongee. Munaongee. Hakuna fika kwa mwingine na kamata faili yako naweka kwa drawer na
okutegeera obukulu bw'okusasula omusolo busobola okuyamba okuzza bizinesi yo n'okwewala okufiirizibwanga. Kati osobola okufuna okuddibwamu obutereevu. Sindika ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo ng'oweereza obubaka bw'obutereevu ne WhatsApp ku nnamba y'essimu 079 14 18 87. Olwo ofuna okuddibwamu okuva ewa Kamisona General wa URA John Musinguzi. Laba amawulire gaffe UBC leero buli Lwabbalaza n'Olwokusatu ofune okunnyonnyola okulambulukufu okuva ew'omukenkufu. Buuza Kamisona.
Power
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Welcome back from GMU Tourism Express, and this is just to also tell you and remind you that the Port 25, which is the 9th edition of the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo, will be airing live here on UBC. So be sure to catch up with the events. You have no excuse to miss out on anything. But that being said, it's time for GMU Business, and my name is Julie Nantaba Musisi, and we are starting off with how to make money out of sandalwood, something that you should look forward to as a Ugandan and should engage in, especially if you are in the Karamoja sub-region. And now, National Forestry Resources Research Institute and the National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA, have started awareness workshops in Moroto on access to sandalwood genetic resources and benefits sharing. The meeting promotes conservation and creates awareness of the benefits of sandalwood. Sandalwood tree grows in drier tropical areas of Asia, Australia, and the Pacific Islands. In Uganda, it is only found in Karamoja sub-region in Tepeth, Amudat, and Nakapiripirit districts. Sandalwood has benefits and is believed to produce the sandalwood oil, which is an essential oil derived from the heartwood of sandalwood trees. It is known for its distinctive woody sweet scent and is used in perfumery, aromatherapy, cosmetics, and mild food flavoring. The Karimajong use this plant for firewood, medicine, fencing the kraal, not knowing other benefits that would fetch them money. Now, those who knew about the sandalwood have been smuggling it to Kenya. And Uganda is part of the Nagoya Protocol, which was signed in Japan in 2010, the treaty that provides a framework for fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from utilization of genetic resources and associated traditional knowledge. Now, the National Forestry Resources Research Institute, NAFORI, and National Environmental Management Authority, NEMA, are creating awareness meetings on the access to sandalwood genetic resources and benefit sharing. And Dr. Samson Gwali, who is the principal investigator at the ABS project, stated that from Nabwin Zonal Agriculture Research and Development Institute, Dr. Rogers Azabu represented the National Agricultural Organization's Director General, Yona Baguma. Now let's move on to matters regarding Uganda and China, and that is in particular the first inaugural Uganda-China Coffee Awareness Tour, which has brought a delegation of Chinese coffee investors and enthusiasts to Uganda to trace the journey of coffee from the farm to the cup. Uganda-China Coffee Awareness Tour, which began on May 12, 2025, officially concluded with a conference in Kampala led by Uganda's ambassador to China, Oliver Woneka. The delegation visited key coffee growing regions across the country to witness firsthand how Uganda's premium coffee is cultivated and harvested. Present at the conference was China's ambassador to Uganda, Zhang Lizong, who reaffirmed China's growing interest in Uganda's coffee industry. Uganda's permanent secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Vincent Bajire Waiswa, highlighted the country's strategic efforts to market economic crops such as coffee for increased revenue and sustainable development. A commissioner for coffee development at the Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Gerald Kyolo, shared an overview of the coffee sector. Branded under the slogan, "Rooted in Uganda, Trusted in China," the tour symbolized a deepening partnership where coffee begins and collaborations grow. Now, with that encouraging news and good news at that, let's have a look at what is on the forex rate scene, and starting off with how the US dollar was buying as of yesterday, 20th May 2025. It was buying at 3,650.32 and selling at 3,660.32. And by midday, it was at 3,650.27, dropped that value there, and still selling at 3,660.27. Can tell that there was no profit in there, but it closed in at 3,649.82, tremendously dropping, and selling at 3,659.82. Now, the British pound was buying at 4,880.90 and selling at 4,894.27. And the euro was buying at 4,106.77 and selling at 4,118.02. The Kenyan shilling was buying at 28.24 and selling at 28.32. The Tanzanian shilling still at 1.35 buying and dropped value, with selling coming back to 1.35. The South African rand was buying at 201.75 and selling at 202.30. That's it from the forex rates as they stand. That is it from JMU Business Today. Up next is the agenda, and we are talking Uganda Cooperatives Alliance matters, but this time around, how sustainable environment is a part of the cooperative society. So stick around. Good Morning Uganda does continue. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Okwongera okuyiga ebikwata ku musolo n'okubisembereza abagusasula. Bannayuganda bangi balina ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo gwe basasula eri ekitongole ekiwooza URA.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear kitenge at 10,000.
Alikuwa nafika kwa mwingine URA na kurespect, lazima mzee tuongee. Munaongee. Hakuna fika kwa mwingine na kamata faili yako naweka kwa drawer na.
Okutegeera obukulu bw'okusasula omusolo busobola okuyamba okuzza bizinesi yo n'okwewala okufiirizibwanga. Kati osobola okufuna okuddibwamu obutereevu. Sindika ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo ng'oweereza obubaka bw'obutereevu ne WhatsApp ku nnamba y'essimu 0794-18-87. Olwo ofuna okuddibwamu okuva ewa Kamisona General wa URA John Musinguzi. Laba amawulire gaffe UBC leero buli lwa bbalaza n'olwokusatu ofune okunnyonnyola okulambulukufu okuva ew'omukenkufu. Buuza Kamisona.
Pick of the day on UBC.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
Was brought to you by.
I'll call you every day, yeah, yo, baby, don't go.
You can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000. Or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21# and select daily, or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Platinums. Just want to confirm to you that May 24th I'll be performing live at Africa Coffee Park for Coffee Marathon concert, and Diamond Platinums will be performing live. So tell all Mukos, Lion Simba is coming. Gonna have fun, gonna celebrate.
Grab your kit, grab your shoes, because we are running at the Coffee Marathon in Tungamo on the 24th of May. And if running is not your thing, you can show up for the vibes. As we close the day at the Coffee Concert with live performances from Diamond Platinums, Sister Charity, and Ray G. Uganda.
Visit www.coffeemarathonug.com to register now for just 30,000 shillings. Your fee includes a marathon kit and full access to the concert. The Coffee Marathon, uplifting rural coffee women out of poverty. Brought to you by Inspire Africa Group.
I'm Kisame Andrew, cold chain technician. Attached to Kalio District Local Government in the health department. The vaccines come when they're in the truck, which is refrigerated from NMS. I receive them, so I load these vaccines. There are some cold boxes I put in those containers, then I take the facilities. Even in the facilities, there are fridges. We are so grateful to the government of Uganda because each and every health center 3 and 4 in the Kalio district has a refrigerator. Once they reach there, I offload them. I also put them in the fridges. These facilities have scheduled outreaches whereby they have to go to the community, to the villages, communities, and make sure that they vaccinate. So they also have small containers which are called vaccine carriers, which they put on their back, of course with some ice to maintain the temperature. So that when they mobilize, the community mobilizers, the VHTs, the LOC ones do mobilize, the communities in gazetted outreaches which are already gazetted, they come and also workers find the clients there and then they do vaccinate them.
Ekitebe kino ekibiina eki kikatandika 2016 tukaba tuyina obusente buke munonga obwabutakubaasa kutumalira tukaba ntusevinga kandi ntwahura ntwohoza turi bamemba 30 kusya 2021 emyoga yija emyoga kuyizire twahindura mu system eyabirera outside catering twageta restaurant akuba catering ketari yakariyo restaurant twatandika kusevinga kirecho twasevingira he mitwaro nshanjo na gumwe iki twatandikireho ekitebe echo twatandika no kuyayo sente z'emyoga 2021 okwezi kwa mukaga ebirikuma okwezi kwa mukaga tuyihayo ruti yo kubanza miliyoni 3 hanyuma ya 1 month twagarukire batuhereza miliyoni 5 zaba 8 twazishashura twazumara myezi mukaga twagaruka tuyayo miliyoni 10 twayihaye zindi 10 twazishashura zaba 28 hati tuyini 10 ezituriyo ntwazo meisho za 38 konka obwa hati cyakibwo restaurant tuyine miliyoni 58 n'emitwaro 2 ezitwaye sevingire itwenka association tukuru kugira ngo tukozesize emyoga yonka ekashanga nitwe turi abakozi nitukora emyoga kuyizire tine magoba yatwongeserereza itwe twakora magoba go kugira ngo tugureho poroti twagigura twareba ngo kugura poroti tukombe kate kuja kututahiza juba nko kutwakubire tuyine business endijo twatunga entasi ya buri zoba tuyine hibiscus juice twakora wine twakora liquid soap twakora habo jelly ezo zabentasya zeitu nkabantu tuyine na millet flour ebyona ebikutahiza ekitebe eki nukwamagoba garukurugamu omurye bitwamara kutunda twagumiza mu ntombeka poroti yaitu eyekibiina ahabwe emyoga so kindi kugambira nti emyoga niyo yatukozesize ebi etakizire tukaba sitine sente tukasitakagizire na kiroto cyo kugira ngo tushubure nkabanyakibiina enju hatukinjire tushakire tukinjire commercial business kandi tucyayombeka nukwe bino nibigumana bireta sente nibizara sente nitubaganaho nitwe nk'abanyakitebe ntusevingaho mu kitebe kitu kandi ntugumiza muno gukora development y'ekibiina so vari addition ekatuyamba munonga ahabw'okuba ekatwongera sente twayongera amaani ahabw'emyoga. Ebitookye ebyabiire nibidiba twatandika kubikoramu wine kyatuyamba mu mwanya gw'okugira ngu tubitematemere ente n'embuzi twabikoramu wine. Ecupa emwe ya wine ntugiguze emitwaro 2 kandi ekidomora kya wine ntugiguze emitwaro 6. Hibiscus juice tuguza akadomora kuruga hari temwe kugarukira hari 5 nero waringa pressure na sukari netamba ekigaro nk'emyoga ntusima President Museveni ahabw'okuba kubatalizire ahi twabire turi tukasitari nka hato kuturi konka hati sente ziriho niwe wenka nokireba ngo ebintu ebitwine birikutasya nebitasya burikeire amagara garije ahabw'okuba twine sente ahiziri ekikuteganisa n'orufu rwonka bite bisigire noba noyehurrage akuba wenda kunywa soda noraroginywire wenda kurya enyama norarogirire so ngu turije so ngu abantu baganyirwe kandi nitwe twenka tuganyirwe n'ekyaro kiganyirwe itwe tugobire amagoba guturukwihaho twine embuzi twine empunu abantu bona buri muntu ayineho enkoko kandi ababire bine obujubuti bakombeka amaju ababire batine bibanja bakagaruka bayongera kugukobwa ngo bakora baguzire bibanja so turukurungi basingo maza nibekolera barije munonga tibakwegomba kugira ngo nanka ino mushija nukwara kurungi kureka bakatunga sente tukatunga omuzaire Museveni yatemyoga so turukurungi omuntu wena nana yetaga sente niko base kukole bintu akabaje nkanye nkajowana bahumugisha nisima obwebembezi bwa President Yoweri Museveni nyowe ebyanje bitambwire kurungi tinde ngabarebere byobote nomini abakazi bakaba batakora bintu mbwire bomini Museveni ahangare nko musoro ahangare kisapeho ayebari sima bwongerwa
My name is Atube Richard, a member of a group called Kanyope, located in Bungatira sub-county. This group started in 2008, but the Prelnol project started supporting us in 2009. The project has offered us training on farming, and the training we got has helped us immensely. We used to farm in a traditional way, planting a variety of crops. But when the team from Prelnor approached us, they asked us to choose particular seeds to grow which can yield very well in our area. We chose groundnuts and rice, which we are growing. With this kind of farming, the project also taught us how to sell as a group after finding a market. The support from the project has been so good to us.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning, Uganda. Thank you so much for always choosing UBC TV, always here to inspire you. It's time for the agenda, and this is where we have a conversation, hosting experts to speak into that conversation, one that builds you and I and Uganda at large. Now, today, as every Wednesday, we do have conversations with the Uganda Cooperatives Alliance, and today is not any different. And today in particular, we are looking at sustainable environment through cooperatives in Uganda. I have two amazing gentlemen in studio to speak into this, and the first being Mr. Richard Musota, who is the Assistant Commissioner for Water Zones, Ministry of Water and Environment, and the usual suspect, CPA Ivan Asimwe, who is the General Secretary of Uganda Cooperatives Alliance. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, Julie. And good morning to all our viewers.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Richard.
Good morning, Julie.
Yes.
And good morning to the viewers. Nice to be here.
Nice to have you.
Thank you.
speaking into this pertinent issue. And once again, good morning, CPA Ivan.
Good morning, Judy. I'm really happy to be here, and good morning, all our viewers. I'm very happy to be here. Really.
Always exciting to have you.
Very much,
have you
very
speak
much.
Passionately about
it's a very good Wednesday today.
Right.
And I hope all cooperators are watching. Some of them have started, they called me, and some of them have started carrying their TV sets
right.
to the gardens. I don't know how they get power, but that is
well,
it.
we have these.
I think so.
You can connect.
You have got it right.
And have a live stream.
That's smart.
Yes, indeed. Now,
Thank you.
starting with Mr. Richard Musota, who is the Water Zones Assistant Commissioner for Water Zones in the Ministry of Water and Environment. Let's talk about what the government's overall vision is for sustainable environment and how cooperatives fit into this strategy.
Thank you very much, Julie. First, I will correct my title.
Yes, please.
I'm an Assistant Commissioner for Water Management Zones in the
great.
Department of Water Resources Planning and Regulation. Probably the viewers might ask again, what are these water management zones?
Indeed.
But we've zoned out our country following the way water flows. So we have water that flows to Lake Victoria. Now that one we call it the Victoria Water Management Zone. Then we have water that flows to Lake Albert. It is called the Albert Water Management Zone. And then water that flows into Lake Choga is called the Choga Water Management Zone. Then to the north of Uganda, we have water that flows into the Nile. As it exits, it is called the Upper Nile Water Management Zone. So we have 4 major divisions in the country. Those are the water management zones. And we are following management of water and environmental resources following those zones. So people as near as Bwaise, if you look at that channel, actually it flows and it goes into Lake Albert. So management of the Albert Water Management Zone starts from as near as Bwaise. And again, people from as far as Kabale, yes, Chanamira side, that water flows into Lake Victoria through the Kagera system. So that is the Victoria Water Management Zone. So I felt I should elaborate first what water management zones are.
Right.
Because the conversation of management of environment and water resources is still to follow that nature. We evaluate how good our environment is based on the quality of water and the quantity of water. Yes.
Wow.
So as a ministry, you talked about our vision towards sustainable management of environment. We look at equity.
Right.
So we are looking at equitable utilization and sustainable management of these water and environmental resources for the socio-economic transformation of Ugandans. Now, oftentimes when we talk about environmental management, people look at conservation. Conservation is not the objective. It is conservation to be able to utilize that resource for development. So if money is not coming into the pockets of Ugandans, then the environmental resources are not worth managing. Yes. So we are looking at how do you bring income into the pockets of the people while sustaining the functions of our ecosystems, while sustaining the functions of our water resources. Now, what does this call? We know that water and environmental resources touch each and every aspect of life. Water and environmental resources touch each and every aspect of economic development. Water and environmental resources are at the center of our social stability. Yes? So if we are to do it, then you are not going to do it in silos. You are not going to do it alone. You are not going to do it as a sector. You must bring everyone on board. And now when you talk about cooperatives, cooperatives is about people coming together, people with a common vision. Yes? And as a country, Uganda, of course, there is that generic common vision that everyone is aspiring to develop. Everyone is aspiring to be well off, yes? Everyone is aspiring to live in a decent environment. Now, I think this is where now the cooperatives come in and focus us much better, yes? So if I'm in a particular space where I have to utilize water and environmental resources, but you know that you cannot bite your cake and have it. Yes. So if you went in to utilize these environmental resources, of course you are going to have an impact on these environmental resources. So the issue is, how do you gainfully and also sustainably impact on these resources? One, it calls for looking beyond yourself. It calls for looking at others that surround you. And of course, everyone would want to get a benefit out of this, but then the bigger question would be, how do I take care of my interests, as well as taking care of interest of the others, but also looking at the future? So you don't stop it at I would want to draw a gain out of this, and once I get it, that is it. But we must look at my gain versus other people's requirements, but also looking at the future generation that will come. Will this resource be there? But also looking at what is the function of this resource that I'm tapping into. Because there are multiple functions. For you, when you come in, you might be focusing at one or two, yes? But when you look at, for example, a wetland, wetland is an ecosystem where people draw livelihoods through fishing, yes? But they draw livelihood through also mulching, getting mulch that they use in their gardens. There is ecotourism in the wetlands. There is crafts that they get from the wetlands. But we know that the wetlands also have a noble cause of filtering our water as it flows, but also regulating the flow of water, thereby controlling floods. So when one is looking at a wetland, they must look at it in that bigger perspective. So if you have communities around the wetland system that draw a livelihood from it, but we've also seen that in the recent times that wetlands are drawing a lot of attention now for agricultural activities. People are clearing wetlands to do agriculture. Of course, they are looking for a livelihood, but the question is it sustainable?
And at what cost? And
at what cost? So the opportunity cost comes in. But one needs to look at the drivers. Why are people then again moving into the wetlands? They are moving into the wetlands because they are looking for moisture. They are looking into the wetlands because they are looking for fertility. But then, where should this moisture and fertility be resident? We know that the fertility we look at, it is the top soil, yeah, that we use for growing crops. But that one comes from the landscapes. So what happens to this top layer of the soils to move from the uplands into the wetlands? Probably it is majorly because our agricultural practices up there have been bad. So that is what we need to put right. Now, this pattern that has come to the wetland to look for a livelihood now is where we bring in the angle of the cooperatives. If you are rice growers and you are doing rice growing in the wetlands, how do we organize you better to continue doing rice growing but not impacting the wetlands? I'm using wetlands as an example, but we have so many environmental resources that we impact. We know that wetlands are host to water. That's why they are called wetlands, yes? So how do we organize this community? One, it could be that we can organize them, for example, now, and it is government policy that we intend to have a mini irrigation scheme in every parish of Uganda. And I think government has started on implementing that. So when we are strategizing for these mini irrigation schemes, how do we organize the communities? One of the ways is to get these communities come together, look at a common activity that they can undertake, then the government comes and invests into that group of people. And the best way you can do it is through cooperatives. We are still in the early stages. The government is organizing around that. but I think once we advance, then that will be the model. And probably we shall even, as Minister of Water and Environment, Minister of Agriculture, Minister of Trade, we shall have to have a round table and probably guide the government in the way it now channels resources to the grassroots people. Yeah? And this is the way we can bring our management of the environment and natural resources into the perspective of cooperatives.
Wow.
But there are specifics that I will be probably talking about later on. But the general framework, the general thinking is that we are following.
Now, I don't know if these specifics come into this next one that I had for you, and it's really related to how the ministry collaborates with sectors such as agriculture and trade to promote environmental sustainability through cooperatives.
Okay. One is that we look at an integrated approach, I think, and that's what I was trying to elaborate. Integrated approach to management of water and environmental resources. Ideally following the way water flows. Now, water is an evaluation, and the water catchment is a host to the environment in totality. Yes? So, under this, we map out that hydrological space and elaborate the resource potential within that. Yes? So once we elaborate the resource potential, that is the wetlands, the forests, the landscapes, the water, and also elaborate how people are utilizing these resources. And it's not only how, but also who and where. Yes? And these people that are utilizing these resources, how are they supported? Yes? Of course, now the support comes in through the other government agencies. So if I'm Minister of Water, I'm talking about how are water resources utilized, how are environmental resources utilized. And along the value chain of utilization of these, who are the people giving support? So when we say we need water for production, Minister of Agriculture will come in. So if you are going to do irrigation, my responsibility as Minister of Water and Environment is to ensure that there is sufficient water to allow irrigation to take place. And I must deliver this water to the farm gate for Minister of Agriculture to start from there. But now, once they do the agriculture, there is now the business of we are going to produce crops, but we must find the market. Minister of Trade has to come in. But also we must produce as groups, organized groups, to be able to find good market. Again, people from Ministry of Trade know how this is done best. The cooperatives come in, yes? So when one is looking at the value chain, you start from what is it that we want to achieve and how do we achieve it? And this is how we've been able to bring, for example, the Uganda Cooperative Alliance on board. We've had, under the climate change era, we know how climate change has impacted very, very many people, yes? So to be able to manage the impacts of climate change, we are talking about how do we do things smarter. Climate smart agriculture, yes? Smart production, even outside agriculture, to be able to sustainably manage the environment and the impacts of climate change. So one of the elements that we've tended to look at is that, as I earlier said, people have run into these ecosystems to be able to find a livelihood, yes? But as they find a livelihood, of course, they are causing impacts. So we are saying, can we find alternatives as well for these communities that have gone into these ecosystems?
Right.
And in order to find the livelihoods, we need to organize these people into groups and be able to support them into the smart production, support them into alternative livelihoods. And this is where the concept of cooperatives comes in. And as a ministry, we've piloted through this through a project funded by Adaptation Fund. Adaptation Fund is a climate fund where we've organized communities into groups, and we are supporting them with alternative livelihoods. We're also supporting them with smarter ways of production, yes? And we've done this through what we call water and environment cooperatives. Under this, it has been the first. We started this business in the year 2020, yeah. And the results are amazing. Mm. You can't believe that people have gone ahead to preserve a wetland. In that preservation, initially they were doing farming in there, doing cattle rearing, doing vegetable growing. But we told them, look, this is not sustainable. We need to use these wetlands in a better way. So they have gone into apiary, they have gone into production of mulch, and no one ever imagined that mulch could most likely fetch far much more than tomatoes fetch on the market, right, from the same geographical space. So we've organized these people into those cooperatives and say, look, you can put your efforts together, look after management of these wetlands, but also draw a livelihood from it in a manner that is sustainable to the environment. And it has created amazing results. Right. Down in Kabale, in Ntungamu, there are testimonies that are being given towards this.
Right. You have given a profound background. And in simple terms and in simple language, one would call it that it's actually studying, investigating, and following up on the sustainable environment management to the muntu wa wansi through cooperatives. Yeah. Very profound at that. The conversation we are having today on the agenda is sustainable environment management through cooperatives. And so far, a profound background has been given by Mr. Richard Mosota, who is the Assistant Commissioner for Water Management Zones. And that is from the Ministry of Water and Environment. And he explained the 4 major water zones that he manages and oversees that end up impacting the whole system as it comes from the water side of things. Now, coming to you, CPA Ivan. Let's look at the practical ways cooperatives are being a part of the conservation systems of our natural resources, especially, for example, forests, wetlands that have been used as a major example by Mr. Richard, different water sources. What practical ways are cooperatives engaging in to conserve the environment?
Thank you so much, Judy, and good morning once again, all our viewers. Happy to be here as usual, and I want to appreciate UBC for always creating this sample time for the cooperators to learn, understand, and know what is happening, because it is our core principle.
That's true.
Education, training, and information, and it is even embedded in our Cooperative Societies Act, CAP 107. Julie, we all know that Uganda is an agro-based economy, and agriculture contributes up to 23.8% to GDP and employs around 68–70% of our population. So that has an implication on environment. Mr. Richard has explained very well. I don't want to go back into environment, but I now want to basically look at the effects. And we see today the effects of climate change, because the moment you tamper with the environment negatively, then it affects you on the other side. If you are a farmer, if you use it to produce a lot, you will not produce. Why? Because of those climatic changes. We all know, and you see, we are still thinking the way we used it to. Even us, the educated. As long as you know that the planting season is in March, you wait for March, forgetting that the weather patterns have changed. And it is affecting us badly. That's why you see people are no longer producing the way they used to. He has explained it very well. So, UBC in 2024 last year, they carried out a study and they actually discovered that Uganda is among the most vulnerable countries in terms of climate change. And it is ranked, I think, number 36. So you can see where we are. Now, globally, research has been made, and it discovered around 2023, the months of July, August, and September, it was there was they call it global warming. The temperatures rose by 1 degree Celsius, which is around 1.8 degrees Fahrenheit. And it is predicted to continue increasing by 0.2 degrees Celsius every 10 years, every decade. So what is the implication? The implication is that we are tampering with the environment.
Right.
And this is why Ministry of Water and Environment is there, and other government bodies are there. And then you see we are there to see how do we mobilize communities. Because the most important thing here is how do you bring communities in this equation? How do you create awareness for people to know that actually we are destroying the environment? Some of us do it because we don't
know. Ignorance.
You have a swamp near you, you go and clear it and you start planting Irish because you want food.
Ignorantly.
Forgetting that you are affecting the future generation.
Right.
You have a forest near your home, you clear it, you make a farm. Yes, for you want milk, but you are doing it at the expense of the future generation. So how do we come together? This is now how cooperatives do it. And it is done very well in Europe. In Europe, we have these cooperatives that are targeting or they are focusing on environment. But here, we are also moving. Now, he has mentioned the issue of water and environment cooperatives. We practically worked with the Ministry of Water and Environment because of that initiative. And then we supported smallholder farmers that we are tampering, we are really becoming a problem to most of the swamps near them in the 3 catchment areas, Maziba, Awoja, and Aswa. We supported them, working with the Ministry of Water. They formed the groups. From groups, we formed the cooperatives, and then they gave them a revolving fund for alternative livelihoods. And practically, they are doing it very well, like he has mentioned. Instead of someone going to the swamp to grow cabbages and Irish, they have left the swamp alone, and they are now in alternative livelihoods, which is very good. And I wish such a program can be upscaled so that it covers the whole country, because the study is very clear. We are the most vulnerable. So at the 6th position, it is very unfortunate that we are there. And you see the effects of climate change. A lot of floods, you hear people in Kasese have died, you hear people in Bududa are dying. Then where we used to plant, you cannot plant now. I am a farmer, I've grown maize. I don't know whether the rain is still there. So I'm likely to lose.
Right.
You get me? Now, at my level, how about my mother, who is still thinking of as it was, it is now, and ever shall be? What is happening? So we need to wake up. So the issue of water and environment cooperatives has been worked on, and they are there, like he has explained. They are now preserving and conserving the environment. Practically, we are looking at irrigation cooperatives. They are there. Look at Doha in the eastern region. We supported them, and they formed a cooperative society that into irrigation. You go to Kasese in Nyakatonzi, they have an irrigation scheme, and it is doing well. It is supporting very many farmers, because that is about adaptation. Yes, climate change has happened, fine. So do we die? Do we accept to die? No, we have to adapt. And the cooperatives are there in irrigation. You talk about, even housing, the way people live also affects the environment. The way they live, the way they dispose of whatever they have. You go to certain, I will not mention the area, but you go to some of these areas, you find a lot of bovera, a lot of bottles, everything piled together in the wetland, in the forest, everywhere. So what is it that we can do as a community? Now, we have supported the formation of housing cooperatives. Now, the housing cooperatives are supporting in terms of creating decent and affordable housing. Now, if you went to certain areas here in Kampala, we have some experiences, and the case scenarios are there. For them, within their vicinities, they have that mechanism of ensuring that the environment around them is very safe and very secure. Unlike in other slum areas where you can't even have where to pass. By the way, Julie, maybe the assistant commissioner will help us here. I don't know, are Ugandans thinking of the future? You go to a wetland and you find all sorts of plastics, bovera. What are we thinking about the future? And
Mixed with wasted food.
Viewers, it is not the responsibility of government. You know, here we have a problem. You go yourself, you drop a bottle, mineral water, you drop it in the water, and then you say, where is government? Government is you. So are we responsible? So this is where we have brought in the idea of housing cooperatives so that we can easily create decent and affordable housing, and then around them, they ensure that the environment is safe and secure. Talk about transport cooperatives. Where we are heading now, we want to start, because we have transport cooperatives. Talk about our Kule Nume in Kampala. It's a union. Uganda Transport Cooperative Union. Borders. The other day we had a meeting, and within our discussions, now these people are moving to these cars that are not using fuel, battery. So very soon they will start importing those cars that are rechargeable. Why? Because we are so much concerned of the environment. Here, when you talk about the environment, people just think of forest and water and what. No, even the atmosphere, the emissions alone, they affect our environment.
Right.
So the energy cooperative, the transport cooperatives will do this as it is done in Europe, where people come together, they buy these vehicles and motorcycles that are not using fuel, and then they distribute them amongst their members. Then we look at these agricultural cooperatives, like the unions. The unions have taken up the initiatives of training their members on the best agronomic practices, climate smart agriculture. And we are promoting this. Why? Because if you don't adopt climate smart agriculture, then automatically you are going to lose out, and secondly, you are going to affect the environment. The circles themselves and other cooperatives, they are financing what they call climate finance or credit. They are giving out solar systems. They are giving out energy, charcoal saving stoves. So all that is being done in order to preserve and conserve our environment. We have also gone ahead to support formation of energy cooperatives. The energy cooperatives like Chegegwa Energy Cooperative Society, we have Isinjiro, Millennium, Paidabim, Inikitugu Mandiguru. So why are these energy cooperatives there? You see, a study also shows that the majority of Ugandans are using biogas as a form of energy, biomass as a form of energy. They cut down trees, they use firewood, they use charcoal, forgetting that they are affecting the environment. So with the formation of these energy cooperatives, working with the government in the Ministry of Energy, they have been distributing and extending power to the different communities. And once these communities have power, instead of using these tadoba, you know tadoba, Julia, have you ever seen tadoba?
Yes, I have.
She's a Gen Z.
Okay, so maybe you have grown up in the country.
But actually, CPA, you do mention the statistics. And
this tadoba here, it affects our environment.
71.9% of Ugandans still use firewood. 23% of Ugandans use charcoal.
Very much.
And only 4.1% use clean energy.
Very much. And that is why the energy cooperatives are needed. Because now, how do we upscale the usage of energy?
Right.
We produce a lot of power in the country, but most of Ugandans, like you have said, are not using this clean energy. So how do we upscale this? Then we use the cooperative model. Because the cooperative model, the beauty with it is that Julie and me may not have money to extend power to our homes. But through a cooperative, it is easier. Very easy because of synergies. So this is what has been done, and I want to appreciate the government for this initiative And I want to call Minister of Energy, now that Umeme has left, in fact, we should be looking as a government now, we should be looking at how do we now support these energy cooperatives to form a union. So that the union, instead of inviting South Africa to come and invest in our power, we rather support our own people to have a union and take over power distribution.
Right.
That is how we shall support it. So we really, cooperatives have contributed a lot practically towards sustainable environmental management.
Very profound
Capacity
indeed.
building lastly
has
been done very well by these cooperatives. And this is why we are here, and even other cooperatives are doing the same. Sensitizing the public on the dangers of climate change and how best they can conserve and preserve the environment. Thank you.
Right. That is a very profound background on explaining the practical ways cooperatives have contributed to sustaining the environment and its management. Now, you can be a part of the conversation. 0709602592. That is a WhatsApp number to which you can share your contribution. Now, let's look at the challenge and policing support. And I will stay with you, Mr. Asimwe. What are those key challenges that cooperatives are facing in implementing environmental programs?
Thank you. Number one is financing. Of course, you need money.
Right.
And still I want to appreciate the government. You know, yesterday we had a meeting at Hotel Protea, and we are discussing climate financing. Are you aware that the government created a fund to support the environment and climate change? The donor community has put in a lot of money. Dr. Peter of Makerere University conducted a study, and yesterday we are doing an evaluation. And actually there is a lot of money outside here. It's both on budget and off budget financing to support climate, because many people have been affected. So they created this fund called climate change financing. So the challenge with these cooperatives that they are facing is how do they support alternatives? Yes, people, you have educated people not to destroy the swamps, not to destroy the forests. But if it were you, Julie, how do you survive? And that is like what he has mentioned, where government created alternatives. As long as people have alternative livelihoods, then they will not go back to the swamps. They will not go back to the forests. Even if they go there systematically. So, but the challenge now with the cooperatives like circles, they don't have that fund. And I want to call upon government, since this money is there, let this money, because this money is in the commercial banks, and it is even in some of it is still sitting in the government agencies. Let this money trickle down to the smallholder farmers, because these are the most affected, and these are the ones who are destroying the environment. So let the money trickle down through the cooperative structures, either through the cooperative unions, the primary societies, and the circles. So it's a very big challenge. Challenge number two is community awareness. Most of the communities are not aware. For me, I cut a tree and I don't know that I have affected the environment. For me, I know, let me cut my tree, I get my timber, I construct, that is it, and I am happy.
Right.
Without forgetting that I'm really affecting the environment. So there is a lack of that sensitization and the community awareness. Lack of policy. Policies are there, but are they implemented? And are people aware of these policies? Can we, for example, empower these cooperatives as a government, as UCA, empower these cooperatives to make sure that these policies that are tailored towards conserving and preserving the environment go through, or they are implemented through the cooperative structures? So that's a challenge. Another challenge, of course, is about governance and management. Some of these cooperatives are still at a certain stage where they cannot really venture into some of these activities. They are still looking for survival. This is a PDM circle. It was formed yesterday. It is still building the structures. The governance is still weak. The management is still weak. They have not been trained. So how do they start implementing this, especially regarding sustainable environmental management? How do they do it? So it is still a challenge. They need time to build the capacities of the leadership and the management. Then technical expertise is also very critical. It's also a challenge. They don't know. Like the commissioner here, I don't think he can cover the whole country. So even the Ministry of Water and Environment needs capacitation. So once they have the capacity, they have the funding to do all of this. And that's why they are partnering with us. Because they cannot do it alone. They have to work with other partners. And that's why we are here together, here, trying to now sensitize the general public. But this is not enough. We also need to go to radios, we need to go to Vitaulizo, we need to go to churches, we need to everywhere.
Yes.
Because environment affects everybody. Whether you are young or old, whether you are male or female, whether whichever political party you are affiliated to, environment affects everybody. So how do we do this?
Thank
we
you.
need to build the technical capacity and the competencies of the cooperators.
Right, thank you so much, CPA. And with those challenges listed, I'd pose it to you, Mr. Musota. You've had the challenges, and you mentioned a couple of initiatives the government has in place, the Ministry of Water and Environment has in place. But point out the bullets on how the ministry is addressing and emphasizing to address the challenges that CPA Asimwe has listed.
Thank you very much. As Minister of Water and Environment, of course, being the lead technical agents, we've scanned through this, and we know where we are most challenged, and we are trying to find solutions to address most of these challenges. As he has rightly said, and as earlier I pointed out, management of water and environmental resources isn't a single person's responsibility.
Right.
And it's even biblical that we are all stewards of our resources that were given to us by God. So one of the roles that we've put at the forefront is to mobilize the stakeholders, to bring the stakeholders together. And that is where the principle of what I was talking about earlier, the water management zones, comes in. And in each of those water management zones, we have what we call water catchments. Yes. So we are elaborating the issues in each of these catchments. We are elaborating the stakeholders in each of those catchments, and we are bringing them together to inform them in their space where they operate. Yes. What is the resource potential that they have? I don't want to start with the negative. Yes.
Right.
So what is the resource potential that they have in a particular water catchment? And what benefits can they draw from that resource? But also, when they are drawing the benefits, what are the likely impacts that they are likely to create upon that resource? So through this, we've been able to work out on the governance structures, because each of these catchments that where we develop catchment management plans, we as well put stakeholder-led governance structures. And these governance structures are led by, if it is a space where districts are involved, a district chairperson will be the chairperson of that committee. And a technical person from the district will be the secretary to that committee. But it brings on board the leadership, the technical staff, the administrative staff, the chief administrative officers, and SAS, going down to the parish level. It brings on board religious institutions, so you look at all sects of religion. It brings on board cultural leaders. It brings on board CSOs. It brings on board private sector. So through this, we've been able to, in a way, kickstart the process of mobilization of stakeholders. And these are representatives of the grassroots people. So once their mindset is transformed, once they become disciples in management of water and environmental resources, then they are able to go down to their constituents and pass on the message. As he has rightly said, the technical numbers, technical capacity in terms of numbers is still limited. I can't be everywhere.
That's true.
But I need to create my own disciple that will take down the message, that will take down the mandate of the Minister of Water and Environment. Yes.
Right.
And the message, the key message that we are supposed to put down there, that all of us are stewards of this common resource. All of us make use of it, and all of us must be responsible for its management. So that is one of the ways we are trying to address that bottleneck of mobilization and also technical numbers within the ministry. With regard to financing, as Ivan did say, there is quite a lot of resources out there.
But please mention them, because I was also
yes?
going to ask if there are any funding mechanisms currently in place to support eco-friendly enterprise initiatives.
Yes, a lot has been put in place.
Right.
For example, we have a fully fledged climate change unit in the Ministry of Finance. Their role is to support the line sectors in mobilizing climate finance. And their role is to ensure that when we are budgeting as a government, then there is that provision for climate. Remember, climate change is mainstreamed.
Right.
And when you are talking climate change, you are really talking water and environment.
Allow me interject a little bit there. And I don't know if what you're saying right there answers Mr. Dikusoka Musa's question or plea. He says that he is a young man who has just retired from army voluntarily to concentrate on his projects. Basically, he is making charcoal briquettes, interlocking bricks and biogas just for the purposes of protecting the environment. And he's asking how is he going to be helped to run his campaign all over Uganda, and he states that he's based in Wanyange, Jinja district. With that finance program you've talked about from the Ministry of Finance, would it speak into his issue?
Now that is one element. Yes?
Yes.
I will still elaborate on financing mechanisms that are out there.
Right.
Yes? And probably then I'll try to pinpoint where he can draw some of these resources. That is at the national level. At the global level, every year we go for the Conference of Parties, say United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Yes. So at this Conference of Parties, we are always negotiating. We know that the impacts of climate change in itself is created by greenhouse gas emissions. And this is largely by the West and the Far East countries. So the Conference of Parties goes for negotiation. You've created this. What can you give back?
Right.
Yes. So there is quite a lot of climate financing out there. The projects we've been talking about that has led to the creation of water and environment cooperatives, given alternative livelihoods, has been financed by Adaptation Fund. And Adaptation Fund is one of those climate financing windows. Now, within that adaptation financing, there are quite a number of thematic areas they finance. There is funds they allocate to each of these vulnerable countries. For example, Uganda now we are eligible to $40 million US. So we are supposed to write project proposals and utilize all that fund. So once we've committed all that money, then another cycle can be available to the country. But they don't stop at that. They also have what they call Innovation Fund. Now, this Innovation Fund is what innovations are out there that you are bringing on board for people to be able to adapt to climate change. And remember, this is Adaptation Fund, so it's only looking at adaptation. There are other funds that look at mitigation, yes? Or a combination of mitigation and adaptation. Quite a number of them, yes? Green Climate Fund looks at broader elements of mitigation, and it looks at heavy investments into things that can help communities mitigate impacts of climate change. So, to my little brother in Wanyange, first of all, what he's already doing is a very, very beautiful thing.
Right.
If he's involved into charcoal briquettes, what is he doing? He's getting the organic matter, and in most cases, this organic matter is waste.
That's true.
Solid waste that we throw into the environment. So he's putting that into proper use. So what he has started is a business. He only needs to be pushed
financially.
Pushed, and windows for financing such may not be directly from Ministry of Water and Environment.
That's true.
But there are many opportunities within the country, and the Ministry of Finance probably could be the right place to try to get into this. And we know that as a government, they have the youth fund at some level. We have the PDM, yes, Women Entrepreneurship Fund. So it is a question of how do I organize myself? And I think for him, what is lacking now is information.
The knowledge.
Where can he go to be able to tap into these resources? But what he's doing is a beautiful thing.
Yes.
We have similar things being done by some of the organizations that are a little bit now to a bit of semi-structured, small organizations. We have Protein Marula here in industrial area under KCCA. They are changing this solid waste that we dump. The solid waste that became a problem
in the city.
In Kitezi.
Yes.
Into fertilizers. Organic fertilizers that we yearn for. Yeah. So these are windows, these are innovations that can be financed under the climate funds.
And how can cooperatives access these funds?
Now, cooperatives can access these funds through project proposals. And I think this is the knowledge, Ivan, that we need to take out to the communities. That we need to take out to the cooperatives.
Right.
The innovation funds that we are talking about, yes? Adaptation funds that we are talking about. It is quite a lot, but people, I think, have not been educated enough. And I must also acknowledge we've not gone out enough to the communities to tell them about the existence of some of these resources.
Right.
The ideas are there, the issues are there, yes.
But
so
the knowledge is not...
The knowledge is not disseminated.
Yes.
And this is partly what we are now starting to do. Right now, under the Ministry of Water and Environment, we've just gazetted regulations on carbon markets. So it is no longer just a question of, I've planted the trees, I will wait to harvest and get money. I've conserved the wetland, I can only get money out of ecotourism, I can get money out of craft material, I can get money out of mulch, but you can get money from a wetland just being there. And I think government has also tried to guide that let communities that live around certain ecosystems be stewards of that ecosystem.
Right.
So if we organized ourselves into cooperatives, then through that cooperative, you can be able to tap into these carbon funds.
Right.
Yes.
Now, as we really look forward to now deeper community engagements, right, from the government and cooperatives themselves, still staying with you, Mr. Musota, do state what the ministry's strategic plans are in enhancing the role of cooperatives in environmental sustainability, looking at 5 to 10 years.
The ministry's major strategies, I think, the biggest thing we need to do with the cooperatives, we need to do with other agencies like Ministry of Trade,
right,
other agencies like Ministry of Agriculture, is to strengthen the collaboration. That is the biggest thing we need from the stakeholders, collaboration. But this collaboration will be made possible through knowledge and information. So we have a lot as a Minister of Water and Environment, to be able to create information products that can trigger thinking.
And when you say knowledge and information, this is down to muntu wawansi.
Yes.
Which is through cooperatives.
Also the muntu wa guru. Yes?
Right.
Because we are the drivers.
Yeah, true,
yes? True. Asimwe is able to talking about water and environment because he has the knowledge. And once you have him, then you have an agent, a strong agent. So when he's going to talk to these cooperatives that have been organized, yes, he's talking with authority and he's talking with information to be able to guide. So that information and mindset change starts from the top and goes down up to the bottom.
Right. Now let me engage some of your comments as we start to bring this conversation to a close. Madi from Ginger says the sensitization of on energy will be difficult to adopt because the changes from umeme to UEDCL is not different. The cost of processing UEDCL is higher than that of umeme was, though the cost of purchasing a unit of power is reduced only by about 200 shillings, and both cannot beat the cost of using charcoal and firewood. Mr. Musota, what do you think about Madi's 2 cents on this conversation?
I think it is a process. If you talk about the cost of a unit of energy reducing by 200 shillings, that is enormous.
It is. It actually is.
It is enormous. One needs to think about it. But what are we talking about? It is not necessary that we are going to get every Ugandan move from use of biomass to hydropower overnight. It is a journey, because even if we made the electricity cheap, the facilities that you need for a local person to be able to use that electricity for cooking are also still expensive. And probably they are not available to them.
Right.
And they are not within their means. Yes? So what are the low-hanging fruits that we can look at? The younger brother had already talked about his business into briquettes.
Yes.
Yes? What are we saying? We are saying, can we move away from destroying the biomass? And this is the alternatives that we were talking about, the innovation. Can we move away from cutting trees to using now this problem that we have? When you go around Jinja, you move towards Bugembe, you move into Jinja City, the issue of organic solid waste, forget about other solid waste, but organic solid waste is big. But this is money. So can we organize this and say, well, when you are looking at the youth fund, for example, the way we have people that are funded to do welding, can we get these youth organized into a cooperative? And we say, for us, our business is going to be briquettes.
Right.
You don't need to do research on market for these briquettes, because charcoal alone has demonstrated that there is immense market out there.
Right.
So
and
can they now move, think about getting into commercial production of briquettes, yes, that you can sell to people. And eventually people shift from using charcoal and firewood into using briquettes. And when we are doing it, we are cleaning the environment as people get the money.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musota. Now, with your parting shots, please answer this one. From Peru, Dominic, who's in Katavi. He says that his concern is about his village in Mela, a Tororo district. And he says there is a wetland in the village that is seriously being misused to the fact that even palm trees are getting extinct. What is government doing about this? And that will be your parting shot as well. Yeah.
What government is doing about this is exactly what we are doing now. To come and mobilize people. To come and sensitize people.
Right.
To come and get people to know that we are all stewards. To come and get people to know that we are all impacted. It is unfortunate, as he said. I think I fondly know this area of Mera. What he's talking about is true. we are left with no tree cover, we are left with no vegetation. Everything is wiped away, but all is not lost. Because once we let these spaces alone, regeneration is always quick.
Right.
But I must assure you, government has given directives on management of wetlands. Government has put in place a 10-year strategy for management of environment and other natural resources. So we are embarking on this. And Cabinet has pronounced itself on management of wetlands. And I think His Excellency, the President, has come out strong and said, whoever goes into the wetlands, we shall not be friends.
Right.
But they have tasked us to do the sensitization, to guide the public on roles of wetlands and how they can be managed.
Spread the knowledge.
But also to try to find alternatives. And the government, I think, is also coming out strong on this. How do we get people into the money economy? Yes?
Yes.
So that they don't impact these natural resources.
Right.
So let's draw benefit out of these natural resources in a sustainable and productive way.
And also make use of the sensitization
Yeah, but
campaigns.
also my parting shots, I think
Yes,
I will need to mobilize the country. Tomorrow, 22nd March, rather May, we are having International Day of Biodiversity in Manafa. Again, this touches the environment. And the week after next week, we are going to have the World Environment Day. That is on 5th of June. We are having the World Environment Day. This time round in Kabale.
Wow.
Yes. So we are moving to Kabale. So the public is hereby mobilized to pay keen attention to these 2 days that are so crucial in our lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard Musota. And closing remarks from CPA, which are a form of advice to someone who comes through.
Thank you so much, Judy.
Take a
I
listen.
really want to appreciate my friend Richard. I want to thank you. I want to thank UBC for this opportunity.
Right.
Cooperators outside there and the general public, let us always listen to these programs. Like I know most of the cooperators, I'm seeing messages coming very fast here. People didn't know about this fund, the climate finance. No, they didn't. And you have seen how cooperatives can access this money. So all of these programs are always there. Like next week we shall be discussing agricultural finance with UDB. Then I really commit to get in touch with the Ministry of Finance so that the person responsible in the Ministry of Finance for this fund will come here and then we are able to sensitize the public. I really want to, once again to thank UBC for creating this time for us as cooperators. Cooperators outside there, have a lovely day.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for coming through to UBC for this particular topic, pertinent topic at that. And that's it from Good Morning Uganda. But also Good Morning Uganda Extra is happening. So there's still more for you to learn from as you're inspired on UBC TV. Good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC.
Kwata ku musolo n'okubisembereza bagusasula. Bannayuganda bangi balina ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo gwe basasula eri ekitongole ekiwooza URA.
Na kapitalu ya mitwalo 5. Ngakala buli kitendo omuntu asasuleko mitwalo.
When we come at revenue, they tell us to clear kitenge at 10,000.
Alikuwa fika kwa mwingine URA na kurespect lazima mzee tuongee. Munaongee. Hakuna fika kwa mwingine na kamata faili yako naweka kwa drawer na
okutegeera obukulu bw'okusasula omusolo busobola okuyamba okuzza bizinesi yo n'okwewala okufiirizibwanga. Kati osobola okufuna okuddibwamu obutereevu. Sindika ebibuuzo ebikwata ku musolo ng'oweereza obubaka bw'obutereevu ne WhatsApp ku nnamba y'essimu 0790 14 18 87. Olwo ofuna okuddibwamu okuva ewa Kamisona General wa URA John Musinguzi. Laba amawulire gaffe UBC leero buli lwa bbalaza n'olwokusatu ofuna okunnyonnyola okulambulukufu okuva ew'omukenkufu. Buuza Kamisona.
This is Damo Diamond Platinums. Just want to confirm to you that May 24th, I'll be performing live at Africa Coffee Park for Coffee Marathon Concert, and Diamond Platinums will be performing live. So tell all Mukos, Lion Simba is coming. Gonna have fun, gonna celebrate.
Grab your kit, grab your shoes, because we are running at the Coffee Marathon in Tungamo on the 24th of May. And if running is not your thing, you can show up for the vibes. As we close the day at the Coffee Concert with live performances from Diamond Platinums, Sister Charity, and Reggie. Visit www.coffeemarathonug.com to register now for just 30,000 shillings. Your fee includes a marathon kit and full access to the concert. The Coffee Marathon, uplifting rural coffee women out of poverty. Brought to you by Inspire Africa Group.
Uganda Development Forum, in partnership with Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, is organizing a two-days Musevenomics Conference on the 29th and 30th of May 2025. The conference is dedicated to exploring Uganda's revolutionary economic model under the theme, Sustaining Musevenomics, hence navigating Uganda's economic future in a disrupted world. His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Uganda, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, and the chairman of Uganda Development Forum, General Salem Salih, will lead a team of distinguished speakers in economics and development. The Musevenomics Conference 2025 is sponsored by Uganda Development Forum in partnership with Uganda Broadcasting Corporation, Uganda Development Corporation, Parish Development Model, and Operation Wealth Creation.
In a nation hungry for truth, a world where every story matters, there exists a beacon of trust and reliability. For decades, they've been our voice and our window to the world, holding the mirror of our history. With 4 TV stations and 11 radio channels spanning 27 languages, they stand as guardians of information, defenders of truth. With Mascari Heritage Advantage, they uphold every citizen's right to reliable and free information. Their archived stories shaped our past and illuminate our present. Yet now, as new challenges arise and the world evolves, their mission faces its greatest test yet. Be part of our journey and let's navigate the unknown, uncover the untold, and safeguard our future together. Tune into your public broadcaster, for it is the intersection of trust and truth. Because to UBC, your story, and every voice matters. UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Step into a world of excellence, comfort and pride with Royal Foam Furniture, crafted to perfection right here in Uganda. We bring you state-of-the-art living room furniture and bedding products at affordable prices. Our wide variety of mattresses include orthopedic, pillow top, spring mattresses suitable for institutions like hotels, and many others for home comfort. With every piece telling a story of royal excellence, our products are built with the highest quality materials made to last. Experience royalty with Royal Foam Furniture, proudly made in Uganda, so buy Uganda and build Uganda. Visit our showrooms at Ginger Road, Chambogo Junction, Bukoto Chisasi Road, and on Victoria Mall, Entebbe, on the first floor.
3 days of music, laughter, and adventure surrounded by the beauty of nature, featuring Africa's top artists. Dance and live fully in the biggest celebration of Africa's diverse heritage, deep in nature's embrace. Welcome to Milege. Explore and celebrate life, music, dance, cinema, food, folklore, and stories. Milege World Music Festival 2025, 6th to 8th June at Botanical Gardens, Entebbe. To buy your ticket, dial *165*20#. Choose Milege Festival 2025 and follow the prompts. Or call 0752 833 111. 911 or visit www.milege.org. Sponsored by Entebbe Municipal Council, Uganda Wildlife Education Center, Uganda Wildlife Authority, Civil Aviation Authority, Uganda Tourism Board, Rock Telecom, Ovidian Uganda, 106.5 Energy Radio, Protea Hotel Entebbe, and UBC.
I'd love to take this opportunity to thank our President, Yoweri Kaguta Trihabura Museveni, by coming up with a Myoga program. We started in 2021 as Kasumi Parish Carpenters Myoga Circle. When we received this amount of 30 million, we had a problem, we had a challenge of machines. We used to carry our wood and we would carry it up to Waise to be worked on. So when we got this chance, we are able to buy machines to ease our work of carpentry. At the moment, we are a number composed of 140 members. We have the women who come in and do saloon chairs. We have the men doing 3-drawer tables, 2-drawer tables, and different kind of furniture. Before the Myoga program came in, we had a lot of crimes taking place on this road. When this Myoga program came up, we managed to collect these youth. We gave them hope that you can change from stealing, and we can give you skill so that you be someone in the society that will even help another person.
Kansoke ddala okwebaza omukulembeze w'eggwanga olw'emirimu emirungi gy'atutaddemu nga ffe abavubuka. Nze nno nze omu ku abo abaabeeranga ku kkubo okwo emisana n'ekiro ng'oluusi olw'okuba naffe tunoonya ekyokulya nga gwa kiyina oba mmwe twakiyitanga b'amalala bagenda beerabisa nga tubagwamu munnange era nga tuba tulina obbikujjako naffe ne tubaawo. Naye munnange neebaza kyamani wange wa wano yankwatako nno wamu ne bannange twatandika okozesa mashini zino tandika okuwawula okulanda okukola dizayini emmeeza zino tuzifulumya entebe bwe ziti tulina emirimu gye tutandikirako emyangu okugeza ng'okufulumya obumotoka buno. Kano akamotoka n'omwana omuto w'emyaka 5 akafulumya. Bw'ova mu kufulumya akamotoka kano owawula okukwata oluwawu n'owawula emmeeza ng'eno n'ebeera smooth. Oluvaawo nga bakutwala ku mashini eno olubaawo olukole bwoti bwe ntyo ndi wa mukisa byonna saabisasulira. Najja wano ne baŋŋamba Pulezidenti Museveni bino ebyuma yabituwa byammwe mulina okuba nga mubikozesa. Omukisa ne ngutwala era neebaza kuba kati ne bwe mba nvudde wano ne ŋŋenda ewalala ne bwe ŋŋenda Sudaani nsobola okusigala nga ndi mu mulimu gwe gumu ogw'obubazi ne gumbeezaawo wamu ne famire yange. Ku sevingi wange ebimu ku byentereka bwe bampa akasente kange nfulumya emmeeza yange eno bino kiri wano si kyakiyamaani waffe nedda wano tulinawo itemu zaffe kati ku ssaawa eno zonjogera wano ninawo emmeeza ezange 5 n'entebe 12 ezitambulira ku mmeeza ezo nga zange era nga zo ne baba bazituuze wali sente baziwanze oluusi emirimu n'emirala ne kijja ne bagala twafunye omulimu bwe guti mujje mufulumye entebe wano bwe zimu gakukola sente bwe kityo. Emyoga gino kuba nagyegattako bingi byenfunye. Edda nze nali nga sisobola kusasula nnyumba gye mbeeramu era nja kunoonya gye ŋŋenda okusula mu mifulejje era eyo mifulejje gye ŋŋenda okusanga ote oli ajja atamidde nga ye ate alina n'essimu gy'amulisa. Kale ebintu ng'ebyo nze kati nnawe nsula era saawa weziwera nti zino saawa zakwebaka olwo nga nsimbula nga ŋŋenda neebaka nawasa tadde n'abaana nno munnange sebo kulembeze weebale bageto yuti mwenna gye muli wabweru eyo temutya temwerumaluma nkata temudda mu biki temulobera mu projekiti za gavumenti kuba zino projekiti ziriwo kutuyamba ffe zaffe zirina kutuyimusa kututeeka ku ddaala ddala bwe lwonazoberamu abalala bazeegaseemu ffe nga tukola ki bweiba bwe bityo.
Because of this Myoga program, we have been able to pick such different youth, mentor them, we train them. After learning, they also go up, even start their businesses. We have people buying from us, schools, we have factories, companies. They come as come and give us very juicy contracts. And out of that, that's how we've managed to accumulate this amount of saving of 70 million.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Good morning, and thank you so much for keeping it with us on UBC TV. Welcome to the Extra. I'm Robert Chirabo Nyonyintono. Now, this morning, we are going to be discussing something very important. Many times, religious leaders have been called upon to be part of various campaigns by government, by the international community, and this morning, we want to look at the role of faith leaders in epidemic awareness and control. And to discuss this, I have Dr. Rebecca Chivumbi Mayanja, the manager HIV/AIDS and reproductive health at the Inter-Religious Council. Doctor, you're most welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, viewers.
And to the extreme end, I have Bernard Ruwama from the Ministry of Health. You're most welcome, Bernard.
Thank you very much, and good morning, viewers.
And to begin with, I'll begin with Dr. When you talk about the Inter-Religious Council, what is your mandate? What is this all about?
Okay, thank you, Bernard. Inter-Religious Council of Uganda is a faith-based organization that unites all religions. At the moment, we have 7 religions that subscribe to Inter-Religious Council of Uganda. That is the Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, the SDA, Uganda Union, the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council, the Born Again Faith, and also APE and the Orthodox Church. And we unite them together for the common good of man. So we look at different angles, like faith, like health. We are here because of the health issue. Then we look at peace, governance, we look at legal. So we generally support religious leaders and religious institutions for the common good of man. And it's because religious institutions are the first in community. They're the leaders that are closest to the community. They talk to the community, they interact with them, they visit them, they preach to them. So that is the mandate of the Inter-Religious Council of Uganda.
Now I want to go to Ruwama. When you talk about epidemic, for the benefit of my viewer, because this is a word that is going to be common throughout the show, but also I must remind our viewer that anytime I may hand you over to a function that is going on, which is the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo Festival that is going to be kicking on. So we may go for that live feed anytime as and when we receive it. But for now, we are still focusing on the role of faith leaders in epidemic awareness. So epidemic.
Epidemic, we use it synonymously with the word outbreak. Okay, an outbreak or a disease outbreak is one that has gone beyond the normal numbers. Sometimes normal means 0. Okay, for some lethal diseases like Ebola, our normal is 0. In other diseases like meningitis, for example, we can do with 1 or 2 cases, but not more than that in a specific calendar month. And others like I said, Ebola and cholera and the like, the normal is 0. Then there are others that we call endemic, those that are with us almost every day. A disease like malaria in Uganda is endemic. So when we say epidemic or outbreak, we mean a disease that has gone, a public health disease that has gone beyond the acceptable numbers. that are expected within that within a specific time period.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm sure my viewer knows exactly what we are talking about. Let me come back to Doctor. Doctor, we want to know first, why should religious leaders be involved in matters concerning health? One would think you would predominantly be focusing on issues of faith. Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and God what belongs. You should maintain your lane and focus on spiritual nourishment of the souls. There's so much moral decadence, corruption, and everything. So what brings you in the aspect of health?
Okay, thank you. Good enough, I'm a health worker, and I work with Interreligious Council of Uganda. And what we noted is that, as health workers, is that managing any disease, any outbreak or any other disease is, we call it multi-sectoral approach. So while the doctors do their work, the doctors and nurses do their work, the religious leaders are also supposed to participate. And we've noted that the moment you leave them behind, you will not have a good fight. Doctor will give evidence of what happened during the Ebola outbreak. But religious leaders, in the first place, we talk to people. Like in a week, we talk to over 2 million people through churches, the churches I mentioned, Catholic Church, the Protestant Church, the SDA Church, Orthodox, the Born Again. Then we also talk to Muslims through our congregations, not only in churches and mosques, but we are the ones who conduct burials. So during that process of communicating with people, we can pass on health messages, preventive health messages, but also those people listen to us. They listen to us. A doctor may say something, a minister may say something, but then someone will come and consult a religious leaders. So religious leaders need to be involved, because if we don't have the information, then we won't give them the right information. So it's very important and key that religious institutions are involved in health-related matters.
Ruwama, let's look at, are there case points where we can say that really religious leaders played a very pivotal role in ending this epidemic?
Oh, I can talk about that till the cows come home.
Okay, please do give us.
But I'll give you specific examples, and this is why, as Becky, Dr. Becky here highlighted, that the most important thing about a health message and health matters is that you need to build trust, you need the compliance, you need the acceptance, you need the confidence in, for example, a health intervention that is being rolled out. And you discover that the religious leaders have that already. They are like 70% ahead of that. And so it's really important that we tap into that resource. You asked about the examples. But let me just say this. In health, we define health, okay? Not, the definition of health is that it is not just the mere absence of disease, but it is the complete well-being of a person, economically, socially, politically. If you lose an election, you cannot say you are healthy, okay? It can mental, physical, and spiritual well-being of a person, not just the absence of disease. And so that's where we tap into the resource of the spiritual aspect and come into with the Interreligious Council. We, for example, noticed that we were responding to an Ebola outbreak somewhere in Kassanda district in 2022. And our biggest issue was we were having a specific religious community, and we discovered on our side as health that the spread of this outbreak was due to the burial practices, okay, that are religious related, the customs that and the norms that are religious related. Trust me, we tried what we could until we pulled off a trigger with a combination with the Interreligious Council of Uganda. And the moment we engaged them, the moment the religious leaders spoke to their people, okay, they began to understand that, asking that when there is an outbreak, we suspend specific customs. That was an Ebola outbreak. The worst case scenario is that the dead bodies are the most infectious agents when we have an Ebola outbreak. So anybody who touches that dead body without protection is bound to become a case. We had a whole town shut down. I won't mention the town because we are so worried of the stigma that can be related to that. And the inter-religious council was so instrumental in making sure that we break through into that community and cut off that transmission. Because unless we had suspended that custom, we would have been going, we would go on and on and on and on. Okay? So that's where it is so critical, and it points back that the message we were delivering, we needed trust, confidence, acceptance of that message, and compliance. And once you have the religious leaders engaged, yes, like I said, you're 70% home and dry.
Okay, 70% home and dry. Now, Doctor, from the perspective of the Interreligious Council, how is the public responding to your messages? Because sometimes, not all times, you talked about the Interreligious Council covers quite a number of sections, religion and faith. Sometimes you've had even your members, some of them go astray. You're talking about promoting vaccination. Someone says, Tebagema bana. COVID-19, we saw the late Pastor Ika coming up with a contradictory message at such a time. We've seen some against family planning. Says, no, God gives, as if people can produce like rabbits. So how are you countering this friction, but also organizing to take this message as a body?
Okay, thank you very much. Just to take you a little back, religious leaders, they are needed in prevention, not treatment. They are needed in prevention, and so they need to be brought on board from inception, from the very beginning. So if you bring us on board, you know, when you failed, when all methods are failed, that's where the challenge comes in. But when we are involved, when you are brought on board on time, just on time, everything goes well. I'll give an example of all that you've been talking about. It's because they don't know. So we call upon the Ministry of Health to always involve us to teach the religious leaders, to give them all the information. That's why we came up with this book, the Faith Leaders Handbook on Epidemics and Pandemics. And it's written in very simple language. Yeah, very simple language, generally easy to be understood by the religious leaders. But this is just on pandemics and epidemics. But if we teach them almost all diseases, they should be able to teach preventive messages. If we teach them malaria, HIV, Mpox, Ebola and all that, then they should be able to give out the right information. And now also we need a lot of, I told you we have 7 religions that subscribe to us. Unfortunately, some of those that give out, say, wrong information, they don't really subscribe to us. And we would want to bring them on board where possible, such that we teach them so they can give out the right information to the public. Otherwise, yeah, we've been we've fallen victim of giving out wrong information as religious institutions, but it's because, you know, there are so many religions that are coming up. Yeah, so I think we need, what I can say is we need support from everybody, from Ministry of Health, to equip us with all the knowledge. But we also need regulation for those that don't subscribe to Interreligious Council of Uganda. Otherwise, those that subscribe to Interreligious Council of Uganda, when given the information, they really pass on the correct information to the public. Yes.
Now, I'll be returning to you later on the word healing. But let me go to Doctor. One of the things that I've heard religious leaders talk about is their involvement. How far have you gone to ensure that religious leaders are involved, she has just mentioned at the start, and also are trained? Because when you're dealing with religious leaders, there's something complicated. They believe in the power of healing. That is one. Now, they also believe in the power of protection. That even if I walk through the shadow of the valley of death, I'll fear no evil, we can proceed. So, you're talking about science, you're talking about the healing hand of God.
Yes.
That means you need right information,
Yes,
and real right information. And also speaking to that person who believes there's healing going to happen, to go and tell someone, take your drugs, to go and tell someone, don't go and pray because you can get such a disease. My God who is strong, he can't prevent me, while others that are anti-godly in that perception are suffering from this. Yes, Doctor.
Okay. Yeah, we can't forget our faith in all this. We believe in prayer, that is a thing, and we believe in God, that is the greatest healer. But the same God gave us knowledge to innovate. When you see where medicine started from, initially they would even cut people, like a cesarean section. They just hold someone and they cut, and there's a lot of pain. So someone came up with anesthesia, but as time evolves, knowledge has increased. And as religious leaders, we encourage them to embrace new knowledge. So if there is healing through medicine, we tell them, okay, promote that, educate people. But also, of course, encourage them to pray, because that's what you believe in. And actually, our God heals. That God heals when we also add on the medicine or the instructions that have been given by the health workers. Yes.
Bernard, how are you moving with this group now, the religious leaders in particular, because you can't give what you don't have?
Okay, you see, brother, healing, okay, and protection, like you said, are all God-given. But for me, in the journey of science that I've had, my hero is a priest who is attributed to be the father of genetics. I don't know whether you know that Gregor Mendel was a priest.
I didn't know
he was a Catholic priest, and just did the science that we now so revere, all of us. Okay, that doesn't mean that he didn't believe in God. God heals, but has different methodologies through which they deliver the healing. It may be laying hands on you. It may be by taking paracetamol. That's also healing. And God has given paracetamol the power to heal your pain. God has given Artemether the power to heal your malaria. And the mosquito comes to use with an innocent way of coming to feed. Because that's the way God gave it the power to feed and sustain its life. So all of this, we call that the ecosystem approach, okay, is all God-given. So we must embrace science is God-given. Doesn't drop. This knowledge wasn't given to us by ourselves, no. Okay, so engaging on the side of engaging the religious leaders, it's coming to the realization that it is everything around us that is God-given. Okay, and we must utilize it fully. Okay, religious leaders in pandemic control, outbreak control, disease control, it's part of what we call the sector-wide approach in management of diseases. And it's a unified approach where we tap into every element that is important in cutting off transmission and living a better life. Okay, you can imagine preaching to a person who is disease-free as opposed to someone with a headache due to malaria, sweating all over. They will not even listen to you. They will not even listen to you, okay? But a healthy mind, a healthy body, a spiritual body, then they will deliver on what you want. A sick person is a person under duress is very, very difficult to deal with, okay? So we are talking about a unified approach to disease control, and every one of us matters. Every one of us matters in this approach, okay? And that's the role that our leaders in faith play.
Okay. Well, allow me to go for a very short break. When I return, I have my guests, but also just to let you know, anytime, as and when it comes through, we shall have a feed looking at the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo Festival. So that may be running anytime. But let me go for this break.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
This May 24th is the grand finale of the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo 2025. Festival Day at Speak Resort Munyonyo. Experience a vibrant mix of music, dance, fashion, art, a fun-filled kids section, and an epic boat regatta on Lake Victoria. Live on stage, Luthri, Winnie Nwaji, Abeka Band, Otim Alpha, Sunabet, Sheila Gashumba, Salvador, Alideki Bryan, Crane Performers, and more. General tickets go for 20K and VIP for 50K. Get yours now at tagticketing.com. For what a festival day. Celebrate culture, celebrate Uganda. Don't miss it.
When you want to relax your body and refresh your mind, welcome to Hotel La Confidential, Aroa's premier destination for luxury and comfort. The only hotel in Aroa City offering a serene atmosphere, breathtaking scenery. Come and discover our exclusive wellness club with packages that include a fully equipped gym, a rejuvenating sauna, steam bath, and a great sky blue swimming pool. For events, our state-of-art conference halls and versatile event spaces are perfect for hosting shows, wedding receptions, birthdays, and more. Come and enjoy our cinema hall and unisex saloon, all designed to meet your entertainment and grooming needs. Bring your family and let your kids splash around in our beautiful kids water park. We are located on Aroa Pakwachi Highway in the heart of Aroa City. Don't wait. Visit us on www.hotelconfidential.com or call us on 0761 688 181.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Welcome back from that break, and thank you so much for being with us on UBC TV. It is the Extra. I'm Robert Chirabonyo, and with me I have Dr. Rebecca Chivumbi Mayanja, the manager, HIV and Reproductive Health at the Inter-Religious Council. But at the extreme end, I also have Bernard Rubama from the Ministry of Health. We are looking at the role of faith leaders in epidemic awareness and control. How have they helped? How relevant are they in this? And I want to begin with the doctor. Doctor, when we talk about diseases, what message, when speaking to these congregations, do you emphasize as religious leaders? Because I know for you, your things are well packaged, you usually move with a common message. So what is that you take to the congregants?
Okay, thank you. All these diseases, okay, now I'm going to talk about the epidemics. We've had, of recent, we've had epidemics. We had the COVID-19, which everybody, even a child, got to know about. We've had Ebola. Right now we have Mpox. And if you notice, before even the medicine, most of this is behavior related. Behavior related. How do we interact with the environment? How do we interact with each other? I remember COVID-19, it was, shake hands, sanitizer, hand hygiene, sanitizer, masks. So all that is not even rocket science. So faith leaders, when involved, can be able to pass on such information. When it comes to a disease like HIV, a faith leader can talk about abstinence. They can talk about abstinence. They can talk about behavioral change. They can talk about encourage taking the drugs. When the health workers prescribe the drugs, the health leaders are supposed to encourage their congregations to take their drugs. Then also the leaders are supposed to fight stigma. The doctor talked about, couldn't even say which town where that epidemic was, and was like, because people might stigmatize people coming from there. But it's our role as faith leaders to fight stigma. Why should you make someone feel uncomfortable? Because they have maybe HIV. No, we should instead be supporting them. So all our messages, all our role is to see that the behavior and the way of people are living is within control. So we can talk about abstinence, we can talk about social distance, we can talk about hand hygiene, we can talk about aeration, we can talk about handling the bodies. But we may not prescribe the Coartem, we may not prescribe the antibiotics. Actually, we don't have to. We are not supposed to do so. That is not our role. So, yeah, that is the health information that we as spiritual leaders are supposed to give out to the communities, but when guided by the health workers.
I love the word when guided by the health workers. Now here I bring in Bernard. How have you ensured the religious leaders are brought on board? Most of the times I hear trainings for nurses, trainings for doctors, trainings. I've not heard of trainings for religious leaders to be able to communicate the right message, having appreciated their value and their role. You said 70% of disease control and fighting or elimination requires people to have faith and trust in the source of information. Yeah. And you ranked them at 70.
So thank you very much. First of all, the Interreligious Council of Uganda is here. That's how far we've come. That's why we're here. We're saying the unified approach, okay, where we work together to make sure that we deliver on the same objective. Okay, one of the big, for example, some of the biggest distributors of medicines, okay, are the faith-based organizations in Uganda. You can't speak health and you do not talk about the impact that has been made, for example, by the Uganda Catholic Medical Bureau, the Protestant Medical Bureaus, and they are so critical in health service delivery in Uganda. Health service delivery does not only concentrate on the curative, no, it is that broad when we talk about health, including what we are dealing with right now. And that is their roles in pandemic control. And what they do is that we are able to utilize what we can through the platforms of the religious leaders to be able to penetrate spaces that need not just a general approach, but a specific approach. Okay, Robert, most of the time, the things that bring disease to the different populations are not the things that are done in common. No, it's not the things that are, it is the self, the person, the determination in a space that is in an individual space. Let's just not talk about just the disease. We usually say diseases, conditions, and events. A road traffic accident as a public health event, as a health event, okay, is a decision that must be taken by the self, not by the entire community. So that someone says, I will control my speed. I will not drink and drive. Okay? Now, that decision is not one which a doctor, let's say, a VHT will make for you, okay? However, the self, the internal determination into that space that is deep-seated inside you to make a decision that where police is or not, I will maintain a speed of 50 kilometers per hour. Where I am encouraged or not, I will not touch food and eat it without washing my hands. Okay? This is where, for example, we tap into the expertise of our religious leaders. Are you with me? Okay? And that is the progressive approach that we make. Of course, it's not a one-off. It must be initiated, and then it becomes a constant engagement, a daily approach, a daily engagement, so that we all move together. Okay? So that's why we are here. I have given you an example. Like I said, if I go on, I can go on and on and on. The Interreligious Council has been so critical, for example, in the fight against HIV/AIDS. For over, I don't know how many years, where they have been so helpful in that approach. Okay? They have been critical in the fight against diseases like malaria. Okay? But like I said, it is not just the mere absence of disease. Imagine how much they invest in making people conscious of their presence and adherence to the standards that we're talking about here. Okay? Spot on. You will come and tell someone to do, for example, put on a mask to prevent COVID-19. Okay? I remember when we had the COVID-19 and Ebola, the Catholic Church suspended shaking of hands in church. Now that has a ripple effect. They will pronounce themselves and say, we are suspending shaking of hands as a symbol of brotherhood in church. Okay? But what is the reason? We have been told that Ebola spreads from person to person via handshake. Okay? And we cannot be sure of people's hand hygiene. That message sinks in and is sustained more than when the minister or my colleague here comes and tells you, you know what, please do not shake hands because it will spread this disease. Okay? It has a very big reach. We call it the constituency of religious leaders. Is actually, I think it is everyone in this community, on this planet, that subscribes to a specific religion and can listen to the religious leaders. That's the spaces that they can penetrate, especially that critical space of making a decision from myself, within myself. Okay? And that's where the religious leaders are so important.
Now, Doctor, what challenges have you found amidst trying to play your role as religious leaders? What are those outstanding challenges that you feel need urgent address to ensure that we continue having value of the religious leaders in fighting disease, more so epidemics?
Thank you. One of the challenge is, so many religions are mushrooming, and we, as Interreligious Council, we may not have control over those ones because they don't fit within our criteria for, being member organizations that subscribe to Interreligious Council. So those ones, they may pass on information that is not controlled. And someone will come up and say, religious leaders have decampaigned vaccination. But someone who subscribes to us can't do that. So that is a challenge of different faiths that keep coming up, whereby we don't have a control. Then the other challenge is, of course, we need more resources, let me say. We are asking for more. So that we can spread, we can go everywhere across the country, and we support all religious leaders to pass on the right information through trainings, sensitizations, printing materials, so that they can reach all of them. So those are just the few challenges that we've had, that we don't have the resources to reach countrywide. We need some support on that. Then also other people who come up who don't subscribe to Interreligious Council, who pass on messages that are not controlled by us and also not controlled by Ministry of Health. Because Ministry of Health comes to us, then first we also go to the religious leaders, but anybody outside that can come up with wrong information.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, in the interest of time, I'll go to Bernard. You have about 3 minutes to give me your parting shot.
Oh, thank you very much, first of all, for hosting us. And we hope that we can have this engagement more and more, and to speak about how we can tap into the resource that is provided by our religious leaders, the faith-based organizations, in promoting a healthy living in Uganda. Okay, it's so important. There are things that we can contest. There are things that we can disagree about. Okay, but matters health, those are not things that we can play around with. Anything else is relevant as long as you are around, as long as you are healthy. That's all for me. Thank you very much, sir.
You're most welcome. Definitely, Doctor, as we move out of here.
Okay. I just want to thank you, UBC, Ministry of Health. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to serve the country through our messages as religious leaders. And I want to encourage all religious leaders out there in the community, please pass on the correct information. If you don't know about a disease, please come and consult us, and we should be able to support you. Otherwise, 98% of Ugandans are religious. They are affiliated to a certain religion, and so we have them in our hands. Let's use our voices better to support them. Let's fight stigma. Let's not point at people, but let's help them. Let them feel comfortable when they come to us, and let's not spread rumors. Yeah, so let's be professional in our approach to health, and as we do our work of faith generally. Thank you very much.
Well, I want to thank you, Dr. Rebecca and Bernard, for your time, and above all, our viewer. Thank you very much for being with us all the way from 6:30 till now, as we've come to the end of Good Morning Uganda Extra. It's important that religious leaders have the right information. We believe in a healing God, but we believe in science as well, knowing that it is Him who created the scientists and also gives them the knowledge to come up with the innovations that work in the healing process. So if you do not have the right information, please do not speak on that matter. Reason being that people take what they hear from you first and foremost as truth, and they react to that. If there is any danger in communication, is a word said by a religious leader. Just like people take whatever is on UBC TV, the national TV, as the truth. So as careful as we are, so should carefully be religious leaders. People trust in you, people believe in you, and you are a very good vessel to end disease and prevent disease. Have the best of your day. May the good Lord bless you.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala, this is Good Morning Uganda Extra.
Pick of the day on UBC.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
Was brought to you by UK
can now get all the Chibuzi out with MTN voice bundles. Call all networks. Kubei Dondoro. Buy a 25-minute voice bundle for only 1,000 or buy any daily voice bundle of your choice. Dial *100 *21 hash and select daily or use the My MTN app. When we talk together, we are unstoppable.
Step into a world of excellence, comfort, and pride with Royal Foam Furniture, crafted to perfection right here in Uganda. We bring you state-of-the-art living room furniture and bedding products at affordable prices. Our wide variety of mattresses include orthopedic, pillow top, spring mattresses suitable for institutions like hotels, and many others for home comfort. With every piece telling a story of royal excellence, our products are built with the highest quality materials made to last. Experience royalty with Royal Foam Furniture, proudly made in Uganda, so buy Uganda and build Uganda. Visit our showrooms at Ginger Road, Chambogo Junction, Bukota Chisasi Road, and on Victoria Mall, Entebbe, on the first floor.
This May 24th is the grand finale of the Pearl of Africa Tourism Expo 2025. Festival Day at Speak Resort Munyonyo. Experience a vibrant mix of music, dance, fashion, art, a fun-filled kids section, and an epic boat regatta on Lake Victoria. Live on stage, Luthri, Winnie Nwaji, Abeka Band, Otim Alpha, Suna Ben, Sheila Gashumba, Salvador, Alideki Bryan, Crane Performers, and more. General tickets go for 20k and VIP for 50k. Get yours now at tagticketing.com. For Water Festival Day. Celebrate culture, celebrate Uganda. Don't miss it.
Teens Crown, an amazing off-the-hook youth program, brings you an array of fun, exciting, and educative segments you do not want to miss. From red carpet moments to proms, youth empowerment programs to youth gig vibes, and so much more, Teens Crown will get you hooked. Only on UBC TV, every Saturday at 1:30 p.m. Don't miss.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Of Ukrainian soldiers in that area. He talked about the issue of prioritizing, so in order to meet people's needs. And some of the issues were water, electricity, medicines, gas, basic needs, and damaged houses. He also talked about the issue of the return of residents to their original homes. These were some of the challenges that are being witnessed in the region amongst the locals. But he said some of them have been discussed with the regional governor and they will be met based on priorities. And one other thing he talked about is the issue of demining the areas and to ensure people's safety, 100% safety. He said that is the priority of government so that people can return back to their homes and feel safe. He also talked about the possibility of a special program to renovate, preserve, and secure churches and cultural sites, you know, in that area that were damaged from the fighting. Recall that the Kursk region was where there was an